Chapter 625. Bloodthirsty Sword. Lin Feng was happy to see those three leave. He turned back around and coldly faced those people from the Tiansha sect. "Since you like to stay with me, I will help you," said Lin Feng, releasing some terrifying sword energy which whistled all around the air. With his mind he could release sword light and energy that was dazzling to behold. Those people were astonished confronting Lin Feng. What a terrifying sword energy. Lin Feng had probably left the strange dimension of the human-earth fusion already and had penetrated into the dimension of sword intent. With his thoughts and heart, he could release some monstrous whistling sword energy. And what a terrifying curtain of sword energy it was. Break! Lin Feng shook his arms and his sword energy started lacerating the space around him. It seemed like the cave was going to collapse as huge pieces of stone and rock were falling down. "What are you doing?" asked someone furiously. The massive amount of sword energy was destroying the cave. The people from the Tiansha sect all released some pure qi in order to prevent the massive stones from crushing their bodies. "I want to bury you," said Lin Feng darkly. He then joined his hands together and whistling sword energy continued to spread in the air. It was painfully piercing those undead's eardrums. The sword energy then turned into sword light and targeted the Tiansha sect disciples. The entire atmosphere was filled with sword light, all the exits were obstructed. It seemed like there were 1,000,000 swords there. They had no chance of dodging them, so they could only block. "Let's make a wall of corpse qi," they shouted when they saw the sword energy moving towards them. They were at a loss. They had to defend against the sword energy and the falling rocks. They released some evil corpse energy and made it turn into a wall to block the swords. "Fall!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. Rumbling sounds spread in the air, and the cave was trembling more and more violently. The people from the Tiansha sect didn't try to dodge the stones anymore as massive stones were falling onto their heads. They had the feeling they were being buried alive with the entire cave collapsing on top of them. Lin Feng moved his fingers and some more rumbling sounds spread in the air. Under his feet, specks of dust rose up as he moved back. Even more stones were falling now. He locked himself in the room where the three others had looked for treasure a moment before. Lin Feng absorbed some sword light and turned into a sharp sword. He moved towards the wall of the cave like an arrow and pierced straight through it. "Xia! Xia!" He was moving quite slowly through the stones and rocks because he had the feeling there was an incredible pressure on his body. Soon, he felt like he could relax when he arrived in a new cave. As he entered this new cave, he found that there was a very thick sword energy emitting somewhere nearby. "I arrived," thought Lin Feng, taking a deep breath. Surprisingly, in that cave there was a large skeleton. On that skeleton there was a blood-red sword. Rumors said that after understanding sword intent, you can use it on an extremely sharp sword to create a separate life inside that sword. That blood-red sword must be a monstrous weapon because it contains sword intent. Maybe that sword is reacting to my sword intent, thought Lin Feng, observing the sword. He had just used his intent to escape from those people and to make the cave collapse. Then he used it to dig a tunnel and arrived in that room to find the sword. Was it a coincidence? Everything seemed to come from his thoughts and heart. Mi Cheng was an ancient and mysterious city. Vestiges could be found if you knew where to look. The evil area had existed for such a long time. It was normal to find miracles. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't dare waste time anymore. He had to become stronger with haste. He made a step forwards and saw that the cadaver was clinging onto the blood-red sword. He took the sword and stabbed his own heart with it as if he wanted to kill himself. Those who could use that sword had to be extremely strong. The evil swords are extremely powerful and seem to be their own masters with their own lives. Their goal is to swallow me and use my body. Because I can't control them, I need a good sword that will follow me. Lin Feng slowly held the sword even more tightly, as the red color of the sword became even more intense. It was becoming shiny and seemed to be coming to life. "Xia!" The red light illuminated the skull. The rotten body that was holding the sword then turned into ashes and disappeared. At the same time, a red light appeared and followed up the sword and into Lin Feng's hand. A red blood color appeared in Lin Feng's veins and merged with his blood. "The sword recognizes me as its owner," thought Lin Feng surprised. It was a weapon with its own life. That blood sword had its own intent too and could even use telepathy. That sword was traveling in Lin Feng's body and telling him that it accepted him as a master. It really accepts me as a host, thought Lin Feng. Its red light invaded the entire atmosphere, and all around Lin Feng there was only bloodthirsty killer, sword chi. The sword was shaking intensely as if stretching after sleeping for so long. Bloodthirsty sword. A memory appeared in Lin Feng's brain. A sword technique had appeared in his head, 13 bloodthirsty swords. A killer sword technique. Lin Feng's pupils shrank. That 13 bloodthirsty killer sword technique required killer energy. Had he come across this sword thanks to his murderous personality? I accept you, said Lin Feng and placed the sword on his back. It was then that the sword became calm and docile again. Lin Feng glanced around. There were no other treasures. He had only found that sword and the corpse. Lin Feng was curious how that person had died. Let's go now. Lin Feng created some incredible sword energy again to dig through the cave. The walls were extremely hard. The room he found was probably meant to be hidden. Lin Feng dug through a little bit and arrived in another opening. Rumbling sounds were spreading in the air. But it was dark, so he couldn't see what was causing them. Die. A terrifying evil chi emerged, and Lin Feng had the feeling his head was being crushed. That evil chi made him feel nauseous. Get lost, shouted Lin Feng furiously. A terrifying fire emerged and illuminated the dark night. Bzzzzzzz. Flames had suddenly appeared. That person was unable to dodge Lin Feng's attack and burnt alive. His evil chi was rolling and spinning, but it couldn't extinguish the flames. The fire enveloped his entire body, creating huge flames. That person was now a human bonfire. Ah! A terrifying, horrible shriek spread in the air, breaking the silence of the night once more. Many silhouettes started flickering. The people of the Tiansha sect all gathered around that place. They watched the fire burn grimly. That Lin Feng had killed another comrade. Their look was terrifying, ice cold. Piercingly cold. They had been waiting for Lin Feng to come out. They thought that one surprise attack would be enough. They never thought that he would kill one of them first. I want to eat your flesh and drink your blood, shouted someone in a particularly evil voice. That was a cultivator of the 7th Xian Qi layer. He then continued, with a wall made of corpse chi, we should be able to eat him. They all encircled Lin Feng as a terrifying corpse chi emerged out of their bodies, moving towards Lin Feng. It seems like I'm going to need my bloodthirsty sword, thought Lin Feng. Lin Feng concentrated and some sword energy started twinkling in the air. This time it was bright red and looked particularly scary in the middle of the night. Chapter 626. One sword blood red light was illuminating the night. It looked even more terrifying than the chi of the people from the Tiansha sect. Besides the red light, that terrifying sword possessed intent, a life of its own life. Did he obtain that blood-red sword in the cave? They wondered, watching Lin Feng's bloodthirsty sword. Lin Feng didn't have a sword on his back when they previously saw him in the cave. But after he entered the cave and made it collapse with his terrifying sword chi, he now possessed it. What other reasoning could there be? Since my sword intent has become stronger, I haven't been able to use it with an authentic sword. I think now would be a good time, said Lin Feng coldly. A terrifying sword chi emerged out of his body and dashed to the skies. It contained terrifying killer, blood energy. Xia! That sword was emitting strident whistling sounds. Lin Feng raised his head and closed his eyes. His sword intent was already level 3. Given his cultivation level that was already monstrously powerful, Lin Feng wanted to give it a try. The evil chi the others emitted disappeared when it came into contact with Lin Feng's sword energy. Their chi had been lacerated by the sword energy and then dispersed in the form of strong winds. How strong, what a terrifying sword intent. He has only broken through to the 5th Xian Qi layer. How come his sword intent is so powerful? They wondered. Generally speaking, cultivators as young as Lin Feng were already considered as geniuses when they could fuse together with the earth. But Lin Feng had only broken through to the 5th Xian Qi layer and could use sword intent, which was enough to scare cultivators of the 7th Xianqi layer. Lin Feng had extremely high natural abilities. The winds being created were blowing away the Tiansha sect disciples. They felt as helpless as leaves being blown away by the autumn wind. "Let me help you in leaving this world," said Lin Feng, holding his sword obliquely with both hands. He sliced horizontally in front of him. Boom! A terrifying blood-red light rose up, sword energy started to burst in the air. It whistled as it moved straight towards the people from the Tiansha sect. The sword energy and sword chi should be sufficient to kill them. Level 3 sword intent, die, shouted Lin Feng furiously. He spun around with his sword still held in both hands. It didn't look like sword light anymore but instead blade light. An arch-shaped blood-red light moved blindingly fast. Seer. There were no explosions sounding this time, there were no whistling sounds. There was only a calm and peaceful sword emitting soft, subtle sounds. The people from the Tiansha sect began to dodge, but then they lowered their heads and realized they had been cut in half at the waist. How terrifying! Were they going to die? Seer. Blood started flowing out of their waists where they had been cut. At first a venous bleed, slow and oozing. But suddenly it started gushing out violently. The scene was very gory as their blood flowed like a violent river. Their blood was falling downwards, gushing sidewards, and splashing towards Lin Feng's direction. All of their blood began directing itself towards Lin Feng. How strong! Lin Feng had been astonished. Level 3 sword intent was really scary. It seemingly could cut through everything. Those people of the Tiansha sect had already broken through to the 7th Xianqi layer. None of them could resist him. They weren't even able to escape. But now there was blood flying towards him. What was the reason for that? Lin Feng quickly understood what was happening. That blood was penetrating into his body and mixing with the bloodthirsty sword. The bloodthirsty sword was shiny as it started vibrating. It seemed like it was drinking the blood. It had an extremely greedy and endless craving for blood. It was a vampiric sword. A bloodthirsty sword. Bloodthirsty indeed, whispered Lin Feng. He finally understood the meaning of bloodthirsty. That sword liked to drink blood. Ah! Blood-curdling shrieks continued spreading through the night. Those from the Tiansha sect were extremely sly and evil. Their skills and techniques were demonic, but now something even more corrupt was punishing them. That was death. They used to eat other people's flesh and drink their blood. What incredible times those were. But now the table was turned. That sword had cut through them and was drinking their blood. The worst part was that they were still alive. What is going on? There were many people in the distance that heard the blood-curdling shouts. Who could be causing them? And it wasn't a single shriek. They could tell that there were multiple persons suffering. Several more coffins flew over there. Apart from the Tiansha sect, others who were practicing cultivation were in the mountain chain and had been surprised. Their silhouettes flickered as they rushed over to see what was going on. At the top of one of the 8 mountains, Shueisha had his eyes closed and was practicing cultivation. But then he opened his eyes and frowned. Where were those shouts coming from? He stood up and gazed into the distance. He decided to go see what was happening as his silhouette flickered into the sky. Lin Feng was still standing in the air with his bloodthirsty sword drinking their blood. The red light was oscillating and illuminating the air around him. After such a long time, it still wanted to drink more blood. Lin Feng's eyes were gradually turning red like blood, making him look like a demon. The sword and he were communicating by telepathy. Extremely strong cultivators could influence swords and sword intent. Oppositely, extremely strong swords could influence cultivators. Lin Feng was using telepathy to tell the bloodthirsty sword to become stronger and to drink more blood. Drinking blood was the same as cultivating to that sword. When Lin Feng saw all those silhouettes rushing over to him from all directions, he decided that now was a good time to run away. 2 pitch-black coffins were moving towards Lin Feng. He produced sword intent again and cut through them. A loud sound spread in the air. The coffins were disintegrated as well as the people inside them. But this time Lin Feng didn't stop. He had no time to let his sword drink their blood. He started moving at full speed through the night. Nobody else tried to impede him. Who did that? shouted a furious voice. It spread all around the mountain chain, making everybody shiver. It was Shueisha's voice, one of the 8 most outstanding geniuses of Shuiyu. The people who had been killed were from the Tiansha sect. They had come with others from the Black Wings Empire and had died there. In the air, a silhouette appeared and looked panic-stricken. Initially, he had wanted to intercept Lin Feng when he had come out of the tunnel in the mountains. But when he saw so many people already there to intercept him, he believed that they wouldn't need his help. But now that he had seen everything, he was panicked. "Do you know who did this?" Shueisha asked him. "It's the guy who was attacked by surprise at the end of the first round of the competition." Shueisha was surprised. He had, of course, seen that move at the end of the first round. "You are doomed," said Shueisha while gazing into the distance. His face was filled with murder. Shueisha wanted his Tiansha sect to see how amazing he was in the competition. So many people who had come to support him had died now. Lin Feng hadn't given him any face. Lin Feng had to die, he was doomed. Chapter 627. The discussion one day wasn't endless. Time passed very quickly for the competitors. The Flood Dragon Cave is where the second round of the competition would take place. It was extremely wide, maybe a few dozen kilometers. There wasn't just one entrance. Surprisingly, there were several. There were flood dragon statues around the entrances with their mouths acting as entrances. In total, there were 81 flood dragon statues in the form of a 9x9 formation. It was strange because there was only one exit. The exit is where the main stage was placed. After going through the flood dragon's mouths, participants would arrive before the main stage. It seemed like everything had been prepared quite well for the second round of the competition. In front of each flood dragon statue, a brouhaha was spreading. Each entrance was like a boiling cauldron of voices. So many people were in front of the mouths of the dragons chatting. They had been waiting for this day for a long time. They couldn't wait to watch the spectacle of the second round and then the final round. Who would be the most dazzling cultivator of the great competition of Shuiyu? Besides, the candidates had already gone through the hardships of the first round and many of them had died. There was initially 144 participants, but now there were only 68. Were more people going to die? Nobody could predict anything. In the distance, there were more and more people coming. Di Ling was as unsociable as before, coming by himself. He had flown through the air and landed on the head of a flood dragon. He sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. He didn't care about other people, so he ignored them. In his world, he thought he was the only person of importance. Shueisha was there too, though he had arrived much earlier. In the same way, he landed next to Di Ling and glanced at the crowd. He was trying to see if Lin Feng was there or not. If Lin Feng came across him during the second round, he would definitely die. However, he couldn't see Lin Feng, so he must not have arrived yet. Several more people were walking towards those flood dragon statues. In the distance, there were 2 Qixia horses walking slowly. On one of them there were 2 silhouettes. They were both wearing bronze masks. On the other horse, there was one cute and pretty girl. Not far from those 2 Qixia followed several others. They were also walking towards the flood dragon statues. Lin Feng was one of them. He wasn't far from those 2 Qixia horses. He looked calm, serene, and had a nice smile on his face. He had broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer and looked like an ordinary young man. Who would think that on the night before, he had used a sword which had drunk the blood of a few dozen extremely strong cultivators of the Tiansha sect. He had destroyed them all with one sword. Lin Feng looked like a little sunshine, not a fighter. At the same time, he looked like someone frivolous with a good joke to tell. Lin Feng didn't talk to Han Man and Pajun. He was staying away from them as if he didn't know them. Someone was glaring at Lin Feng coldly. It was Yu Lu Shui. He obviously knew that Lin Feng was with them. Even though Yu Qin and Yu Jian were already dead, Yu Lu Shui didn't want to leave Mi Cheng. He wanted to stay there and avenge his sons. He couldn't kill him right now though. He had to wait until the end of the competition. Lin Feng didn't pay attention to him. He knew that Yu Lu Shui wanted to kill him after the great competition of Shuiyu. But Lin Feng believed that he would be the one killing Yu Lu Shui in the end. A few silhouettes flickered and arrived between Lin Feng and the Qixia horses. Lin Feng was surprised, but quickly he looked normal again, as if he hadn't been surprised. Are you from Shuiyu? Asked Yu Qingshan to Han Man. If Yu Qingshan wasn't mistaken, those horses were Qixia horses. The soldiers protecting the border of the country were using those very horses. Even though Yu Qingshan wasn't a member of the army, he had heard all of Lu Zonglan's stories. In fact, Yu Qingshan admired Lu Zonglan. Even though the army was just some of the king's pawns, they were extremely strong pawns. Their strength was acknowledged by everybody. Military members, even though they were pawns, always paid tribute and respect to their king. They were ready to sacrifice their lives for their country. My 3 brothers are, I'm not, said Xiaoya while smiling resplendently. 3 brothers? Yu Qingshan was looking at Han Man and Pejun. There were only 2 people. He turned around to look at Lin Feng curiously. Lin Feng was a participant at the great competition of Shuiyu. If he were from Shuiyu, Yu Qingshan would definitely know him, or at least would have heard about him. You are from Shuiyu? Asked Yu Qingshan curiously. He had never heard of Lin Feng before. Lin Feng smiled wryly. Xiaoya had committed a gaffe. Indeed, said Lin Feng calmly while looking at his grandfather. He wanted to tell him that he wasn't only from Shuiyu but was also his grandson, that they shared the same blood. Yu Qingshan recognized Yu Tianming as his grandson, but not Lin Feng. He wanted Duan Xanyi to become Yu Tianming's wife. Lin Feng would never accept such a thing, and it made him sad that Yu Qingshan was like that. During the competition, Yu Tianming and Lin Feng might fight. It would be difficult for Lin Feng not to show his true colors then. He would have to use his skills and everything. Sometimes, Lin Feng wanted to see Yu Qingshan look remorseful. He wanted to prove to Yu Qingshan that he was more outstanding than Yu Tianming. Yu Qingshan obviously didn't know about Lin Feng's thoughts though. When he saw that Lin Feng was admitting he was from Shuiyu, he was even more surprised. Forgive me, but I know almost all the geniuses of Shuiyu and I've never seen or heard of you. Your Excellency, what is your name? Mr. Yu, head of the Yu clan, is very famous. But you cannot possibly know everybody, said Lin Feng while smiling. Yu Qingshan was astonished. Mr. Yu, head of the Yu clan? It meant that Lin Feng knew him. He was really from Shuiyu. All right, maybe, said Yu Qingshan while nodding. Then he shouted, Tianming, come here. Do you know that outstanding and handsome young man? He says he's from Shuiyu. Yu Tianming came over and looked at Lin Feng. He of course knew about him. He had seen him in Dragon Mountain. Lin Feng's corporeal body was monstrously strong. He had impressed everybody. Besides, Lin Feng seemed to be progressing extremely fast on the path of cultivation. In Dragon Mountain, he hadn't even broken through to the Xianqi layer, and now he had already broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer. For anyone else it would be impossible. Yu Tianming knew that Lin Feng had been hiding his real cultivation level. But that guy who had the same name as Lin Feng was now saying that he was from Shuiyu? Since when? Grandpa, that guy was qualified for the competition in Dragon Mountain, and his name is Lin Feng too, said Yu Tianming. Yu Qingshan was astonished. His white hair fluttered in the wind and then quickly stopped moving again. Lin Feng? Yu Qingshan was looking at Lin Feng. That young man was also called Lin Feng, but he wasn't like the Lin Feng he knew. He was however saying he was from Shuiyu. Indeed. I also know that Mr. Yu knows another person called Lin Feng. What a coincidence, said Lin Feng, smiling indifferently. Yu Qingshan slowly calmed down again, but Yu Tianming was fixated on Lin Feng. Lin Feng, when he had appeared in Dragon Mountain, had never said that he was from Shuiyu. He also had never said anything in particular, actually. But now he was saying that he was from Shuiyu and also seemed to know a lot about the Yu clan. He even knew Lin Feng. It seemed too exaggerated. Yu Tianming was finding it harder to believe. It's really a coincidence, said Yu Qingshan while smiling and nodding. The fact that we met here at the great competition of Shuiyu is fate. You and Yu Tianming should become friends. You can exchange a lot. He has lots of experience. Mr. Yu is very strong. You are not a young man anymore. Yu Tianming is also extremely talented and very strong. Neither of you have anything to learn from me, said Lin Feng modestly. Yu Tianming understood what Lin Feng meant and said, all right, we're not going to bother you anymore. Then Yu Qingshan and Yu Tianming left and walked away. However, Lin Feng's silhouette kept appearing in Yu Qingshan's thoughts, especially his face and eyes. Lin Feng was so young but looked so deep. Chapter 628. Enemies and Friends. Lin Feng was following the Qixia horses, not too close, not too far as they arrived next to the statues. He looked at the 81 statues, especially at their mouths. Lin Feng's eyes were twinkling. He was wondering what kind of treasures were hidden in them. During the first round, in the vast evil area, there had been temples with incredible skills, techniques and memories inside. The second round was taking place in the Flood Dragon Cave. It was probably going to be very difficult too, at least more so than the first round. The rules had to be different as well, so there would probably be no temples this time. How would the candidates be selected if it wasn't more difficult? This time, the battle would determine everyone's specific rankings for the battles of the last round, so nobody would spare any effort. Everyone wanted to be ranked amongst the first ones so that they wouldn't have to fight against the strongest cultivators. If they had to fight against one of the 8 most outstanding geniuses, they would immediately lose. An ice-cold chi spread out into the air and crashed onto Lin Feng's body, making him frown. He turned around and saw Xuesha. Xuesha! Lin Feng was surprised and staring at Xuesha. Die! Shouted Xuesha. Everybody was speechless, looking at Lin Feng. Xuesha released some monstrous deadly energies but didn't attack him. With that word, he wasn't saying that he was going to kill him right away, he was telling him that sooner or later he would die. It seems like Xuesha knows about what happened yesterday, thought Lin Feng. He had to be very careful. At the great competition of Xueyu, too many people wanted to kill him already. Mo, Xuesha. The crowd looked at Lin Feng with empathy in their eyes. Xuesha wanted to kill him. He was doomed. He had only broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer and he was acting so recklessly. Last time, he had already infuriated Mo. This time Xuesha. Against all expectations, Lin Feng looked calm and serene. He just calmly stood there. It seems like many people want to kill you, said someone mockingly. It was someone from Tianfeng. Of the 7 envoys from Tianfeng, 4 were dead already, so there was now only 3 left. Lin Feng smiled strangely when he said, Indeed. During the first round, you all wanted to kill me but now I am still alive. Unfortunately, I see that 4 of you are already dead. I wonder if any of you will make it to the 3rd round. Said Lin Feng, silencing them. They were coldly glaring at Lin Feng. Already 4 of them had died. That didn't leave them in the best position. 4 people at the scale of the competition wasn't such a large number, they were initially 144 people. More than half of them had died during the first round, so the fact that 4 people from Tianfeng had died was unsurprising. They may have died, but don't think you are exempt from death, said the first envoy of Tianfeng, Nye Yun. Lin Feng was making fun of Tianfeng and knew what their tender point was. Let's hope so, for your sake, said Lin Feng indifferently. His name is Lin Feng. Many people were trying to remember his name. He was courageous, brave, and audacious. He had so many enemies but still managed to survive the first round. And in the end, with the strength of the 5th Xianqi layer, had managed to move on to the next round. However, he would probably end amongst the last ones in the rankings and end up fighting against the strongest cultivators. You have many enemies, someone said. A silhouette flickered and appeared next to Lin Feng. That person looked cold and elegant. Lin Feng smiled resplendently. Long time no see. Tang Yuyu was surprised. They had seen each other just the day before. Let's say I missed you, said Lin Feng, smiling shyly. What an awkward situation. You guys arrived, said Jun Emoshi to Tang Yuyu and Lin Feng. He looked at them and said, this time, you really have to finish amongst the first ones. Then you won't have to fight against the strongest ones till later. I know that I will finish amongst the best ones, said Lin Feng. Against all expectations, he had absolute faith in his own abilities. Didn't he know that with his strength of the 5th Xianqi layer, he was easy to defeat? He surprisingly thought he was going to end up high in the rankings. The crowd was surprised when they saw Jun Emoshi and Lin Feng. They seemed to be good friends. Besides, only he was friendly to such people. The other 7 geniuses were extremely arrogant and solitary. They looked down upon everybody else. Junimo, she was the only genius who was standing with ordinary people. The 7 other geniuses were sitting or standing on the heads of the flood dragon statues, while Junimo, she was calmly standing amongst the crowd. And he even seemed to be friends with a cultivator of the 5th Xianqi layer. Junimo, she was quite strange. "I'm late. Sorry," said Yunfei Yang while sluggishly walking over to them. He looked calm and unrestrained. "So what do you think? Do you think you will manage to finish amongst the first 20 best cultivators?" asked Yunfei Yang to Lin Feng. "No idea," said Lin Feng shrugging. He adding, "What about you?" "Me?" asked Yunfei Yang. He shrugged and said, "I survived the first round, I'm happy already. If I manage to move on to the next round, that would already be incredible." Yunfei Yang then stretched himself. The sky was particularly blue on that day, making him feel extremely free, unrestrained, and carefree. The second round would start soon. "Do you think I believe you?" whispered Lin Feng. Yunfei Yang was always like that, since the selection rounds at the Xiangjiang Lake. He had always acted sluggishly. He was also quite frivolous, looking like he cared about nothing. Lin Feng was starting to understand him. "I'm here." In the air, someone suddenly appeared, and it was Xue Wuchang. He had arrived. It meant that the second round of the great competition of Xueyu was about to start. Xue Wuchang looked down at the crowd from the sky. "The rules of the second round are extremely easy. You all have to enter the Flood Dragon Cave from a different entrance. Then you have to go through as fast as you can. On the other side there are some jade medals with numbers on them. When you pick one up you will see a number. That number will be your ranking," said Xue Wuchang. The participants then all nodded one after the other. The rules were simple indeed. It was all about getting ranked. "I would like to remind you of something. Don't procrastinate because of other things. The best plan is to pick up a jade medal as fast as possible. If you finish amongst the first ones you will be able to choose your opponents. The most important thing for most of you is to choose your opponent after all. It is worth mentioning that if you finish amongst the first ones, you cannot challenge someone else from the top 10, said Xue Wuchang. Everyone was in an uproar. The first ones would be able to choose their opponents. They would have to make great efforts to finish amongst the first ones. But Xue Wuchang was worried to see the most outstanding geniuses of the competition challenge each other immediately. So he added an extra rule: they simply weren't allowed to. Such battles were better saved for the end of the competition. Interesting rules, thought Lin Feng. The extra rule was fair. The strongest cultivators wouldn't be the only ones to decide everything. It was quite equitable. If I manage to finish amongst the first 10, nobody will be able to challenge me, thought Lin Feng. His eyes were twinkling with determination. Chapter 629. The Flood Dragon Cave. Of course, when Xue Wuchang finished talking, Lin Feng wasn't the only one thinking that. The others were all thinking that they had to finish amongst the first 10 cultivators. Even if they weren't as good as the 8 most outstanding geniuses of Xueyu, they still had 2 free spots to finish in the top 10. They must leave no effort wasted if they wanted a chance to move forwards. Now, there are 68 people. Please all move to different entrances and get ready for the beginning of the second round, said Xue Wuchang. In a flash, silhouettes started flickering and the participants appeared in front of the mouths of different flood dragons. They were all releasing pure qi and condensing it. The second round of the great competition of Xueyu was actually a race. They had to cross the Flood Dragon Cave in the shortest time, then they could end up in a better situation for the final stage. There were 81 statues, so 31 of them had nobody in front of them. It seems that nobody went missing the night before. And who would have dared to be late? The great competition of Xueyu only happened once every 10 years. That competition would maybe enable them to have a great future. Gio, said Xue Wuchang, raising his hand. Everybody released a monstrous amount of qi and delved into the Flood Dragon Cave. Nobody wasted time. They had to get the first jade medals. And then they would be able to choose their opponents. They could survive the onslaught of the top 8. Lin Feng didn't hurry that much though. He released some monstrous amounts of energy and then entered the cave. His silhouette looked blurry at that moment, but he actually was moving very slowly. Actually, Lin Feng didn't believe that it was a race at all. Otherwise, the second round would have been way too slow. From outside, he had noticed that only a few steps were required to walk from one statue to the other end of the cave. Shui of Chang watched as they entered the Flood Dragon Cave. He then rolled up his sleeves and made a step towards the other extremity of the cave. He was going to wait at the exit. The audience did the same and moved towards the exit. In a short time, the exit of the cave was surrounded by people and the entrances were left completely barren. Everyone was remaining silent. Some pedestrians were passing by the entrances sometimes. They had the feeling that the silence was too oppressing. It didn't take long for the exit of the Flood Dragon Cave to become a boiling cauldron of voices. People were close and numerous. Everybody was watching the exit, calmly waiting. I wonder which of the 8 most outstanding disciples will finish first? Various comments were spreading in the crowd. Indeed, which one of the 8 most outstanding disciples was the strongest? Those crowd could only guess randomly at that moment. There was no way to predict what would happen. Several were guessing that Di Long was the strongest, while some others thought it would be Duan Wu Dao. They had heard about Duan Wu Dao and just how monstrously strong he was. His sealed door's spirit could seal anything. His spirit was too terrifying. Nobody could stop him. Of course, others were betting on Jun Mo Shi as he was extremely enigmatic. Everybody was guessing one of the 8 amazing geniuses. Obviously it had to be one of them. But who would be the first one out? Even though people knew that they wouldn't come out too fast, they were still staring at the exit. They were impatient to see who it would be. Lin Feng entered the cave and saw a valve. A huge water valve. Lin Feng could see himself in the water of that door. Lin Feng moved forward and crossed the water valve. Some ripples and waves appeared, but then the door disappeared into a spiral. Around the door there were lights that looked like pure qi. His silhouette flickered as he moved forwards and looked around. In front of him, several people appeared as rumbling sounds spread in the air. Gigantic monoliths were moving out and transformed into a wall that obstructed his way. Are they people? Lin Feng was baffled. Were those people made of stones? They could move by themselves and create obstacles to obstruct Lin Feng's way. Lin Feng smiled coldly and made a step forwards. Those were only stone puppets, nothing more. Even though they had human shapes, they probably couldn't rival with human beings. Boom, boom, boom. Several stone fists launched towards Lin Feng. They were allowing him to come closer. Lin Feng could clearly sense their physical strength. Those stone fists had the physical strength of the 5th Xianqi layer. Like me? Lin Feng raised his hands and a golden light suddenly appeared. It looked dazzling, pure and holy. Boom, boom. Those stones immediately broke. The stone puppets were indeed as strong as Lin Feng. However, Lin Feng could easily crush people of the same level as him. After he destroyed the stone puppets, Lin Feng continued to walk forwards when another water vortex appeared in front of him. Lin Feng frowned but didn't stop. He was about to get through that door when a silhouette came out of it. Lin Feng immediately stopped because he was surprised. It was him. The silhouette coming out of the door was him. Exactly the same person. That silhouette was even wearing the same mask as him. They were absolutely the same, just like clones. Huh. Lin Feng frowned and stared at the silhouette. That person was himself. How was that possible? Did the first water door clone me when I crossed it? Thought Lin Feng. That was the only explanation. He couldn't think of anything else. I knew that the Flood Dragon Cave would be extremely complex. I'm not the only one experiencing this. It should be the same for everybody else. This is a battle. I have to fight against myself and surpass myself. Change my state of mind. Lin Feng made a step towards that silhouette, but the silhouette copied him. Boom! A collision sound spread in the air. That counterfeit and him moved back to where they were. Their movements were exactly the same. It has the same strength as me too, thought Lin Feng, stupefied. How? He couldn't figure it out. Die. Lin Feng jumped forwards and released some killer energy which was ice cold. At the same time, the counterfeit also released the same killer energy. Lacerate. Some tearing sounds spread in the atmosphere. Lin Feng was staring at the counterfeit. Lacerate. As Lin Feng had expected, the silhouette said and did the same thing. The two killer chi collided and made the cave shake. Then the sword energies collided and disappeared together. I have to stay calm and cool-headed, thought Lin Feng. He slightly closed his eyes and then opened them again. He was smiling resplendently. Lin Feng slowly walked forwards, very calmly. He wasn't releasing any energy or using any tricks. He was absolutely calm and serene. The other Lin Feng also walked towards him until they touched each other. See you? Lin Feng slightly inclined his body. The counterfeit did the same and they passed next to each other, slightly brushing the other's arms. Busy. The sound of their clothes rubbing could be heard, and then the clone evaporated like steam and disappeared. Almost as if it had never been there. I'm so stupid, I've made a huge mistake. But I'm sure all the others will make the same mistake and think that they have to defeat themselves. Thought Lin Feng. Actually, Lin Feng was right. Most of the other people had the same idea as him and thought that they had to defeat themselves to get past the clone. The harder they tried to fight, the further they were from victory. That was just a water illusion set there to test their hearts. Chapter 630. Rushing through the Flood Dragon Cave in order to defeat one's own self, strength wasn't key. It is their heart and state of mind. In order to break through to higher cultivation layers, one's heart and state of mind were extremely important. Otherwise, one's cultivation could start stagnating at some point. The tests of the Flood Dragon Cave couldn't only be related to strength, it wouldn't be that simple. Lin Feng then crossed the water valve and was left speechless again. There was a passageway in front of him, but it was made of magma and filled with monstrously scorching hot fire chi. From outside, Lin Feng could already sense the horrible heat. He had even started sweating profusely. How hot, thought Lin Feng staring at the flames. The entire passageway was filled with flames. They were diffusing a light which looked almost illusory. The physical strength contained in that fire has the strength of the 6th Xian Qi layer. It seems like the Flood Dragon Cave is adapting to my cultivation level as I progress further in, thought Lin Feng, smiling. It was just adapting to his relative strength, nothing more. In fact, his cultivation level and fighting abilities were incomparable. That fire of the 6th Xian Qi layer couldn't be a problem for him. Lin Feng jumped forwards as he released some fire chi which surrounded his body. Then he penetrated into the fiery passageway. Roar! A fire dragon emerged out from the flames and darted towards Lin Feng. But when it collided, it suddenly became much weaker. His Cosmos Burning Sun was a sun skill and required sunfire. It was much stronger than a normal and ordinary fire. Let's swallow the fire, thought Lin Feng. Then his Cosmos Burning Sun started revolving and a terrifying vortex of strength appeared all around his body. The fire surrounding him started moving towards his body. Instead of stopping Lin Feng's own fire, it was being swallowed. It was becoming a part of Lin Feng's fire. Roa! Another roaring sound spread through the air. In front of Lin Feng appeared several terrifying flames. They looked like fire beasts that were made of fire. Lin Feng made a move and his banner appeared in his hand. It was his spiritual fire banner. Go! Lin Feng shook his head and the banner moved forwards with a terrifying strength radiating from it. The fire beasts were enveloped by the banner and disappeared, swallowed by it. To add, the fire of that banner had become denser and more powerful. The entire passageway could make me stronger, thought Lin Feng. He kept walking forwards. Around his body a fire was burning. It was even more violent than before. The banner continued swallowing fire along the way. Now and then, some terrifying lights would appear. But they couldn't affect Lin Feng at all. Instead, they became part of Lin Feng's strength. After a few kilometers, Lin Feng sensed that he was arriving at the end of the passageway. The fire had disappeared. Lin Feng was disappointed because he didn't want to stop. He had the impression he hadn't swallowed enough fire yet. He then left the passageway and saw a passageway. On the right and the left of the passageway there were tunnels which were crisscrossing. Those tunnels should have led to the other tunnels where the other participants were. But Lin Feng couldn't see anyone. How strange. If I maintain this speed, not only will I finish amongst the first 10 best, I will finish first, thought Lin Feng determined. He saw that there were many tunnels and holes everywhere. The one in front of him was probably the best one. The problem with all those tunnels crisscrossing was that it reminded him of a labyrinth. A maze that you could get lost in. Lin Feng started forwards and without hesitating started running. Since he didn't know the way, his best idea was to trust his heart. Hesitating was only a waste of time anyways. There was absolutely no sound in that passageway, only an eerie silence. "Welcome," said a mysterious voice suddenly. Lin Feng stopped and looked in front of him. There was a light beam that stopped when a human silhouette appeared. That silhouette had the demeanor of a transcendent being. It was floating in the air like a celestial being with pure and holy qi. The silhouette slowly walked towards Lin Feng. It was an old man. The old man smiled at Lin Feng in a warm and gentle way and said, "You're the first one to arrive here, so I will grant you a wish. Don't be shy." "Anything? I can ask for anything?" said Lin Feng, sounding a bit suspicious. "Indeed, anything," replied the old man. "Are you sure that you can grant any wish?" said Lin Feng. "Trust me," said the old man in a warm and gentle way, smiling warmly. Lin Feng nodded indifferently, walked next to the old man, and smiled resplendently. "Are you done thinking?" asked the old man in a gentle voice. "My request is..." "Piss off," said Lin Feng with the same smile on his face. He then turned into a terrifying sharp sword and attacked the old man. The old man was surprised. Now he looked like an illusion even more. Then he slowly disappeared. Lin Feng looked behind him and then continued running forwards. He had only one thought: move forwards. Lin Feng didn't believe that there were celestial beings who could grant people any wish. The only thing people could realize were those with which strength and cultivation enabled them to do. Being able to grant any wish was just ridiculous. Who could do that? If Lin Feng had said that he wanted to become the strongest cultivator of the continent of the 9 clouds, what would the old man have done? Nothing. On the path of cultivation, there were some miracles, but no miracle could enable you to make gigantic progresses in the blink of an eye. That was simply impossible. Therefore, Lin Feng had immediately attacked him with his sword-like body. He had already crossed 2 water valves, and now all Lin Feng wanted was to obtain the jade medal, nothing else. He wanted to be able to choose his opponent for the upcoming battles. Now, nobody can be faster than me, thought Lin Feng, convinced. He hadn't seen anyone in that maze before, which meant that they hadn't arrived yet. Finally, Lin Feng stopped after running for a while. In front of him was a gigantic flood dragon illusion. It opened its mouth and inside was a bridge. It seemed like it was becoming more and more narrow as you went down. That is the other side of the flood dragon cave, thought Lin Feng, raising his head. He could see something on the other side, but he wasn't sure because there were still many other tunnels. Those might be where the previous tunnels lead. He looked pensive for a few seconds and then immediately continued running forwards. On the bridge, 9 silhouettes appeared. They were all wearing flood dragon gowns and had their hands behind their back. They looked fake and real at the same time. Lin Feng stopped and inspected them. Their eyes were all closed and they weren't looking at Lin Feng at all. The 5th one abruptly opened his eyes. Cold lights were twinkling in them. He was fixated on Lin Feng. They were obstructing Lin Feng's way on the bridge. Lin Feng continued running faster and faster. On his body appeared a terrifying, whistling sword energy. His entire body was surrounded by a sword light. The 5th person frowned when he saw Lin Feng's sword qi. They then also released some monstrously powerful qi. That person had only broken through to the 5th Xian qi layer. "Get lost," shouted Lin Feng, and his terrifying sword qi dashed to the skies and enveloped the enemy's body. Boom! The sharp sword qi crashed onto the enemy, and the 5th person disappeared. As expected, they're fake, thought Lin Feng, but he still looked calm and vigilant. Die! Lin Feng's sword energy kept shooting upwards. He arrived in front of the 6th person but didn't stop. The 6th one had the strength of the 6th Xian qi layer, but just as quickly, they disappeared. Chapter 631. The 9th person. The 6th person disappeared, but Lin Feng didn't look so happy. He looked solemn. The seventh silhouette had the strength of the seventh Xian-Qi layer. There were still the eighth and ninth ones. Their respective strengths were of the eighth and ninth Xian-Qi layers surely. As expected, the last thing that matters here is strength, thought Lin Feng, releasing even more sword qi and attacking the seventh person. The seventh person was staring at Lin Feng and looked surprised, just like a real human being. Lin Feng had only broken through to the fifth Xian-Qi layer and already possessed such a monstrous sword intent and energy. Xia. Fa. Lin Feng's body was spitting out monstrous sword light. It looked tangibly sharp, like it could cut through anything in the world. Sword intent kept emerging. In Lin Feng's hand appeared a whistling sword. Level 3 sword intent, lacerate, shouted Lin Feng. He rose up into the air and his sword streaked through the air, separating the sky. Under that energy, the seventh person turned into an illusion and became seemingly ghost-like. Boom! The seventh person disappeared. Lin Feng landed on the floor and continued running towards the eighth person. But he finally stopped and took a deep breath. The two remaining had the strength of the eighth and ninth Xian-Qi layer respectively. They would be hard to defeat. How strong, said the eighth person. You are so young. If the great competition of Shuiyu had been a few years later, you definitely would have been the most dazzling young genius. Unfortunately, you were born a few years too late. Lin Feng had only broken through to the fifth Xian-Qi layer and had managed to make it there. He had already crushed the first several people while running across the bridge. He defeated the fifth, sixth and seventh ones with a single sword attack. Lin Feng could be proud of himself. If you were a little stronger, you would be able to defeat me. Then you would obtain the 11th jade medal because you're the first one to arrive here. If you were even stronger and managed to defeat the ninth person on the bridge, you would obtain the first jade medal likewise. However, you have already reached your limits because you cannot defeat the one after me. At best you will only be able to obtain the 11th jade medal. Explained the eighth person. Lin Feng was shocked. As expected, strength had always been a limit. He was the first to arrive. If he managed to defeat the eighth person, he would obtain the 11th medal. Defeating the seventh one would have enabled him to obtain the 21st jade medal. If he had been even weaker and had only managed to defeat the sixth one, he would have ended up getting the 31st jade medal. Even if he had arrived first. That Flood Dragon Cave challenge was extremely difficult. With his incredible natural abilities and determination, Lin Feng had managed to make it there. But in the end, he might move further. All he needed was more strength. Now, give up. If other people arrive, things will become difficult for you. Getting the 11th jade medal is not bad already, said the eighth person. Lin Feng's eyes were twinkling, his mouth moved as he asked, I just need to pass behind you, right? I don't need to kill you, right? Indeed, even if you pass next to me and manage to move further, that's enough. You don't need to kill me, said the eighth person nodding. However, even if you manage to run further, you will only get the 11th jade medal. All right, said Lin Feng nodding. He looked calm and solemn. His lips shivered as he chanted a mantra in Sanskrit. Small, dazzling, golden Sanskrit letters were moving out of his mouth. Lin Feng's body started shining. There was a golden aura around his body. A moment later, Lin Feng's body was completely golden and dazzling, just like a Shakyamuni Buddha. Huh? The eighth person frowned. He hadn't thought that Lin Feng could do such a thing. Lin Feng's corporeal body had the strength of the 7th Xian-Qi layer now. 1,000 Buddha hands, shouted Lin Feng in Sanskrit. 1,000 golden hands emerged and darted towards the eighth person. He raised his head and released some monstrous pure qi in front of him, which turned into a wall. Boom, boom, boom. The golden hands bombarded the pure qi wall over and over again. The space was shaking unceasingly. It was then that Lin Feng began moving forwards towards the eighth person. His lips kept moving as he continued chanting mantras in Sanskrit. It seemed like he was never going to stop. Lin Feng was getting closer and closer to the eighth person, though he wasn't scared. He jumped forwards and released some physical strength which aimed at Lin Feng. Go! The eighth person bent the air with his hand and a terrifying transparent wall moved towards Lin Feng. He started feeling very oppressed. Fury, shouted Lin Feng furiously. Lin Feng joined his hands together and gigantic golden hands continued bombarding the transparent wall. Lin Feng's body was trembling from the effort. The pressure was even worse because the bridge was narrowing. The narrow bridge was the only thing that could stop Lin Feng from moving further. The angle to pass and dodge the 8th person was too tight. Besides, the cultivator of the 8th Xianqi layer was extremely strong. Kacha. Small fissures were appearing on Lin Feng's golden body. He began chanting mantras faster, and his body became even stronger. His entire body was covered in incredible golden light. "Get lost," shouted Lin Feng furiously. Terrifying golden Sanskrit letters kept flowing in the air. At the same time, he was making the strength of the Haruka rotate in his body. Then, Lin Feng's body turned into a beam of light as he moved forward like an arrow. "You shall not pass," shouted the 8th person as he attacked. Lin Feng's golden body started cracking under the pressure, but he ignored it. He opened his mouth and spat out some terrifying sword qi, catching the 8th person off guard. Some terrifying pure qi enveloped his head, but the sword qi pierced through it. Subtle sounds spread in the air. "Burn!" shouted Lin Feng when suddenly fireballs emerged out of his mouth and enveloped the pure qi surrounding that person's head. There was no way the 8th person could have been ready for that. "It's time now," shouted Lin Feng. He suddenly moved like the wind above the 8th person and landed behind him. The 8th person turned around and looked at Lin Feng while smiling. "Congratulations. You did it. Now you can obtain the 11th jade medal." "No, it's not enough," said Lin Feng looking determined. He didn't want the 11th jade medal, especially seeing how others could choose him as an opponent. Shui Sha and Umo wanted to kill him. Those two would obtain one of the first 10 jade medals, so they would be able to challenge him. They would kill him outright. Therefore, Lin Feng needed a better medal than that. Now, he had to fight against the 9th person. The 8th person was at first speechless, but then replied, "I wish you good luck." Lin Feng slowly turned around and walked towards the 9th person. Defeating him or crossing that barrage wouldn't be easy. But he would be able to obtain the first jade medal if he did. He'd practically be guaranteed to finish amongst the best ones in the end then. Lin Feng needed to keep everything under control if he wanted to finish in the top 9 at the great competition of Shuiyu. The last one was of the 9th Xianqi layer. How strong! That 9th person sensed Lin Feng approaching. He slowly opened his eyes and extremely sharp lights twinkled in his eyes. They penetrated into Lin Feng's heart. In Shuiyu, the 9th Xianqi layer was already incredible. Such cultivators were considered as monstrously strong. Only past that was there the Tianqi layer. "Go," said Lin Feng looking ferociously fierce. Lin Feng would have to fight against other cultivators of the 9th Xianqi layer later during the competition. So he had to see how strong they really were first to find a way to defeat them. Chapter 632. The first jade medal outside of the Flood Dragon Cave. Everyone was still waiting. Nobody had come out yet, so who would be the first one? They were all so impatient with their eyes were twinkling. "Let's not talk about the first one, let's talk about the first 5 ones. "Who will they be?" said someone suddenly. "It's not easy to guess, but Di Ling, Duan Wu Dao, and Shui Sha will probably be the 3 first ones." "I don't think so at all. I think that Jun Emoshi will be one of them. He's going to give his best, so he should be one of the first 3, said someone else. However, everybody in the crowd was convinced that the first ones would be some of the 8 most outstanding geniuses. They weren't considering the other cultivators at all. Shui Wuchang was standing on the fighting stage, facing opposite to the exit of the cave. He looked calm and serene. He was just as impatient to see who the first one would be. Di Long was good. Duan Wudao was also extremely strong, Junimo she was enigmatic. Then there were the 5 others. They were all extremely strong. Apart from those 8, there were other extremely strong geniuses. Each time during the great competition of Shuiyu, there were some exceptions, some unexpected winners. This time probably wouldn't be an exception. Until the very last battle, nothing was sure. Shui Wuchang knew that there were some variables which always affected the final rankings, astonishing everyone. In fact, Shui Wuchang was delighted to be in charge of the great competition of Shuiyu this time. To see such amazingly talented young cultivators was inspiring. Not far from the exit, Lin Feng was inside of the Flood Dragon Cave on a bridge. He was facing the ninth person with his bloodthirsty sword held firmly between his hands. A red, dazzling light was illuminating the atmosphere. "I couldn't believe that when you fought against me that you didn't use your full strength," said the eighth person behind, watching Lin Feng. He was excited. Lin Feng's real strength was unfathomable. Pure qi whistled as it penetrated into the bloodthirsty sword. It was becoming more and more dazzling as it was releasing a terrifying blood energy. In that blood qi, there was also some sword energy. Lin Feng slowly walked towards the ninth person with his sword held obliquely. Die. Lin Feng jumped and released some sword intent. A terrifying red light twinkled like thunder and in a flash rain as he arrived in front of the ninth person. The ninth person looked perfectly calm and serene. He raised his hand and released some pure qi which turned into a wall. It then slowly engulfed the blood-red light which quickly disappeared. Lin Feng knew that his only chance to defeat that cultivator of the ninth Shenqi layer would be with that sword. He jumped again and moved closer to the ninth person, attacking with his sword again. The ninth person just slightly pulled in his stomach and Lin Feng's sword couldn't reach him. But when the bloodthirsty sword passed by, Lin Feng suddenly made it rotate and move back. It was a perfect change of trajectory. A weak opponent would have never been able to dodge it. Some wind blew and the ninth person moved backwards. Third sword. Lin Feng moved like the wind and his red sword twinkled again. "Destroy," said the ninth person who was angry. He was pushed back because of Lin Feng's trick. Obviously he wasn't happy. He released some terrifying pure qi and destroyed that sword light. He didn't want to move backwards again. A terrifying strength then oppressed Lin Feng's body, leaving him dazed. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. His sword streaked through the atmosphere horizontally. The entire atmosphere was filled with the red light of his sword. In the air appeared a word, blood. That was the seventh sword attack. Lin Feng was moving his sword at full speed, just like lightning. All his sword attacks were monstrously powerful. "What nice sword play," the eighth person was astonished. Lin Feng's sword attacks were perfect. He showed no flaw with any movement. Each of his sword attacks were extremely dangerous. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be enough to defeat the ninth person. 11th sword. Die! Shouted Lin Feng furiously. The gigantic word's blood turned into a blood cage. It was filled with an infinite quantity of sword energy as it moved towards the ninth person. The ninth person immediately moved backwards with his pure qi whistling in the air. On his clothes appeared the word blood as well. Lin Feng had just attacked him for 7th time and all of them had reached him. "Get lost." The ninth person released a monstrous quantity of pure qi which launched towards Lin Feng. Some rumbling sounds spread in the air as his pure qi attacked the blood word. The pure qi kept being destroyed by the blood energy. However, the pure qi finally managed to make the blood word disappear in the end. "Ha!" The ninth person raised his head and saw Lin Feng in the air. His bloodthirsty sword was diffusing an extremely bright red light. Lacerate. Lin Feng seemed like he was in fusion with his bloodthirsty sword. That was Lin Feng's 12th attack. With his bloodthirsty sword he had a special attack which consisted of 13 strikes. Cr. The sword seemed like it could annihilate anything. It passed through the ninth person's pure qi. Sword lights surrounded him as Lin Feng's sword started falling down, on top of that person's head. How terrifying! The eighth person's heart was pounding. He was speechless. A group of people were arriving. There was an extremely beautiful woman in the group. She was stunning. Apart from her, there was another man closely following her. "They're coming." The eighth person wasn't ready. The seventh person couldn't stop them and was immediately destroyed. The illusions were appearing and getting destroyed immediately each time. The eighth person suddenly couldn't see anything anymore, only blackness. It was as if he had turned blind. Then several silhouettes passed him. "Get lost," shouted the ninth person furiously. He used all his strength to project Lin Feng backwards. But while Lin Feng was being projected backwards, he abruptly stopped. He had crashed against someone behind him. They surprisingly had a soft chest. Lin Feng turned his head around and saw Tang Yuyu. Tang Yuyu had arrived second and just in time. Her beautiful eyes twinkled, she looked surprised. But then she said, "Let's go, quickly." Then her body shook and a group of shadows appeared and attacked the ninth person. It didn't take long for him to be buried under those silhouettes. I forgot that she had the 1,000 shadows technique, thought Lin Feng. It wasn't surprising that she was the second one. With her 1,000 clones she was obviously faster. Where are you going? There was something even more terrifying than the ninth person at that moment. Lin Feng turned his head and saw Duan Wu Dao and Di Ling Tang Yuyu was trying to make them lose time. The ninth person was constricted by the silhouettes. Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu rushed forwards and ran towards the exit. They were using all their strength for this final dash. Boom boom. Tang Yuyu's clones disappeared and some terrifying qi emerged in the air. Lin Feng could sense that qi. It came from Duan Wu Dao and Di Ling. "Another 100 meters, shouted Tang Yuyu. They still had to run for 100 meters. Were they going to fail at the very last minute? 1,000 clones, shouted Tang Yuyu furiously. Blood splashed out of her mouth as she increased her speed. Her clones were moving backwards to obstruct the way. Boom! Her 1,000 clones were destroyed in a flash, but that short time had been enough for Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu to reach the exit. In front of them there was a jade medal labeled from 1 to 68. "Take the first one," shouted Tang Yuyu. Lin Feng didn't have time to hesitate. He immediately grabbed the very first jade medal and left the Flood Dragon Cave. Chapter 633. Drinking alcohol on stage. The crowd outside the Flood Dragon Cave was still waiting for someone to appear. And finally, a silhouette appeared. He jumped and immediately landed on the fighting stage outside the cave. Who? People were staring at the silhouette. Who was the first one? What they saw was a sick-looking person who was rather worn out at the moment. People were astonished. They had never thought that the first person wouldn't be one of the 8. It wasn't Di Ling, it wasn't Duan Wu Dao, it wasn't Zhu Nemo Shi, and it wasn't Xue Sha either. They actually weren't any of the 8 most outstanding disciples. Surprisingly, it was Lin Feng, a cultivator of the 5th Xian Qi layer. How's that possible? How could he be the first one? The crowd was astonished. That was way too strange. Xue Wuchang was astonished too. Even if Lin Feng had managed to pass all the tests, at best he should have finished 11th or maybe even 31st. But in the end he had come out first. It meant that he had arrived first on the bridge. The first to come out was usually the one with the first jade medal, but Lin Feng should have the 11th or even the 31st jade medal. It was impossible for him to have the first jade medal. Phew! The crowd saw another silhouette appear and they were astonished again. People were constantly surprised. That competition was insane. The second person wasn't one of the people they had expected to see either. It was a beautiful girl, however, she was much stronger than Lin Feng. Even though they were surprised, they were still less surprised than when they saw Lin Feng come out. "Are you all right?" asked Lin Feng to Tang Yuyu. He didn't pay attention to anyone else. At that moment, he only cared about Tang Yuyu, who was looking pale with blood flowing out of her mouth. She had used the 1,000 clones too much and was suffering the kickback. "I'm all right, it was worth it anyways," said Tang Yuyu while smiling. She raised the second jade medal. Lin Feng had arrived first and Tang Yuyu had arrived second. Those two would be able to select their opponents. "You made great efforts," said Lin Feng to Tang Yuyu. His heart felt warm. If Tang Yuyu hadn't been there, he wouldn't have been able to pass through the 9th person's barrage. But Tang Yuyu had been able to block him. And even worse, Lin Feng wouldn't have been able to compete with Duan Wu Dao or Di Ling in the passageway. He wouldn't have finished at all without her. After all that, Tang Yuyu still gave him the first medal. Even though the first and the second jade medals were the same in terms of advantages, the meaning was different. Boom boom. Some terrifying qi spread in the air and the crowd looked at the exit again. This time, finally, some people they had expected came out, Di Ling and Duan Wu Dao. Di Ling and Duan Wu Dao looked furious. They glanced at Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu coldly. They had stolen the first and second jade medals. But immediately after, they relaxed again. They both walked towards the edge of the area and sat down cross-legged, as if the outside world had nothing to do with them. In the end, they had also won. Even if Tang Yuyu and Lin Feng had arrived first and second, strength was the most important thing now. They weren't going to drive themselves crazy for such a futile prize. Nobody could defeat them and nobody dared to try. Shui Wuchang was extremely curious. He looked at Lin Feng and asked, "Is your jade medal the 21st or the 31st? Lin Feng was stupefied. He looked surprised. 21st? 31st? Even without Tang Yuyu, he had managed to defeat 8 people and could have finished 11th. Of course, Shui Wuchang didn't know about that. So the fact that he was asking was normal. When the crowd heard him, they were confused. Was there a rule that they couldn't understand? You probably abandoned after the 6th or 7th person, right? Or did you get the 11th jade medal? Asked Shui Wuchang again, when he saw that Lin Feng wasn't saying anything. Abandoned after the 6th or 7th person? The crowd was astonished again. Lin Feng had come out first, but he wasn't necessarily the first one? How come? Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu glanced at each other and laughed. Tang Yuyu looked amused. They looked like they were close friends. Lin Feng looked at Shui Wuchang, raised his hand, and slowly opened his hand in which appeared a jade medal. On that shiny jade medal, there was one number. What? First? Shui Wuchang was absolutely astonished. He was staring at Lin Feng's jade medal. Lin Feng hadn't arrived 21st or 31st. Not even 11th. Lin Feng had taken the first medal. The crowd felt normal again. Indeed, he was the first one to come out and had taken the first medal. "I knew it," said Xiaoya in the crowd while giggling. Pajun and Han Man clenched their fists. He was the first one. Lin Feng was astonishing. Even though it was only the second round, Lin Feng could really be proud of himself. Interesting, thought Yu Qingshan while looking at that strange and mysterious young man who had said he was from Shuiyu. Surprisingly, he had finished first. Everybody remained surprised. "I wonder where Yu Tianming is and which medal he will get," thought Yu Qingshan at that moment. Besides, Yu Lu Shui and the people from Tianfeng were upset. They were furious. That Lin Feng was too lucky. After the competition, they would strip him of his luck. "Your name is Lin Feng, right?" asked Shui Wuchang. Lin Feng nodded. He was surprised that the old man knew his name. "Lin Feng, that jade key is extremely useful. You have to onto it dearly," said Shui Wuchang. Lin Feng realized something, that jade metal had incredible advantages? Could it be used for anything else? Shui Wuchang was, on top of that, talking about a jade key now. But before the second round, he had talked about jade medals and not jade keys. A key? Those were keys. Actually, they did have the shape of keys. "I will," said Lin Feng nodding. Shui Wuchang didn't add anything else. Lin Feng glanced at Tang Yuyu and they both moved aside. "Will your injury affect your fighting abilities?" asked Lin Feng to Tang Yuyu. She looked calm and serene. From outside, one couldn't see that she was severely injured. "I'm a member of the Tang clan, do you remember?" said Tang Yuyu smiling resplendently. Lin Feng was surprised and smiled. Indeed, he had forgotten, Tang Yuyu was a lady from an incredible clan. A few bottles of alcohol suddenly appeared. "Do you like drinking hot unit?" asked Lin Feng with a devilish smile. He then opened and chugged some hot unit. Very quickly his pure qi started flowing at full speed in his body. He was moaning with pleasure. The hot unit was flowing in his body and increasing his body temperature. He felt great as his face turned red. "How comfortable and pleasant," said Lin Feng, breathing heavily. His qi felt like it was burning. "Is it that good?" said Tang Yuyu in a low voice. She opened one too and immediately drank a bottle. Her face turned red as well. "Cough, cough." Tang Yuyu coughed while staring at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was speechless. He hadn't forced her to drink. Hot unit was good for him, but it didn't seem as good for Tang Yuyu. If it had been good for her, the Tang clan would have made her drink it before. Chapter 634. The 11 Best. "Hot unit is for men," said Lin Feng when he saw that Tang Yuyu's face was red. He found her very beautiful at this moment and his heart started beating faster. He was starting to have some feelings for her. Maybe, replied Tang Yuyu, lowering her head. The crowd looked at them both speechless. They looked really relaxed. Some of the most important and decisive battles of the great competition of Shuiyu were about to start, and they were just sitting together and drinking alcohol. However, Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu had finished first and second. They had much less pressure now that they could choose their opponents instead of being targeted. That way, with her strength, Tang Yuyu might finish amongst the 10 best ones. However, Lin Feng's cultivation level was too low. He had only broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer. Weak cultivators wouldn't be able to finish high up in the rankings against cultivators of the 8th and 9th layers. Lin Feng had the possibility to choose his opponent, but they were going to be stronger and stronger during the competition. Eventually being able to choose his opponent would be useless. At that point, no matter who he chose, he would lose to. Of course, if people had seen Lin Feng in the evil area and then on the bridge in the Flood Dragon Cave, then they wouldn't have thought the same way about him. Even though Lin Feng had been lucky in the Flood Dragon Cave, would someone so weak have been able to arrive first on the bridge? Besides, he had also managed to defeat the first 8 cultivators on the bridge and move on to the 9th person. Although Tang Yuyu had helped him at the very end, the rest of the challenges were passed by himself and only himself. "You are drinking alcohol and not inviting me?" said a voice in the distance. Lin Feng, who was drinking a cup, raised his head and saw Junimo Shi slowly walking towards them. Junimo Shi had come out 5th and had obtained the 5th Jade Key. He was very surprised to see that Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu had managed to finish in the top 5. Amongst the 5 best, there were Lin Feng, Tang Yuyu, Duan Wudao and Junimo Shi himself. He was very happy to see that Dragon Mountain was dazzling this time. "Just invite yourself," Lin Feng said while laughing. Junimo Shi sat down with them, grabbed a flask of hot unit and started drinking. Boom! A terrifying qi emerged in the air. It was Shueisha. Shueisha was the 6th one, but he was releasing some terrifying qi and was glaring at Junimo Shi. Huh! The crowd was confused when they saw Shueisha stare at Junimo Shi that way. It didn't seem like he was joking, it seemed like something had just happened. It seems like Shueisha is angry at Junimo Shi, thought the crowd. Junimo Shi looked unperturbed and serene. He didn't look surprised either when Shueisha came out looking furious and ice-cold. His hair looked extremely messy and his pale face particularly cold. It seemed like Junimo Shi made him angry, but the crowd had a strange feeling. Junimo Shi wasn't weak and gave people an enigmatic feeling. He didn't look arrogant or conceited. He was always free and unrestrained, walking around as if he had been having a leisure walk. "What did you do to him?" asked Lin Feng, looking amused. He was very curious. "I attacked him and Umo by surprise," said Junimo Shi while laughing. As expected, Umo then came out too and he looked furious. He also glared down Junimo Shi. He had obtained the 7th Jade Key. When Lin Feng heard Junimo Shi, he was speechless. The crowd was also astonished. He had attacked them by surprise, that guy. Junimo Shi was openly admitting such a thing. The crowd was in disbelief. Junimo Shi was really a strange person. "You did what I wish I could do, let's toast to your good health," said Lin Feng while laughing wholeheartedly. Shueisha and Umo were astonished as they watched Lin Feng. What was going on? Lin Feng had come out before them? "He got one of the last jade medals though, right?" asked Shueisha while looking at Xue Wuchang. "He got the very first one," replied Xue Wuchang. Shueisha's face suddenly drastically changed. Lin Feng had obtained the very first jade medal? Shueisha and Umo were astonished. He would be able to choose his opponents, which meant that Lin Feng wasn't going to fight against them. They wouldn't be able to kill him at that stage of the competition. "If not now, we will get him later." Both Shueisha and Umo didn't understand how Lin Feng had obtained the first jade key. "I hope you won't run into me later on," said Shueisha again coldly. He then moved aside and sat down. Umo did the same. "It's so boring to wait, we're lucky to have some drinks," said Junimo Shi smiling. Lin Feng and Junimo Shi seemed to be even closer than before. Perhaps it had to do with the results of the race. In Dragon Mountain, Junimo Shi was the most outstanding young man of the country. He didn't stay with the masses, but now he was always with Tang Yuyu and Lin Feng, and they even seemed to be very good friends. It's true that he is more open to other people than most, but he didn't need to think meticulously about his behavior when he could do as he wished. Unfortunately, we don't have enough drinks, whispered Lin Feng as if he had been talking to himself. Tang Yuyu turned her head and glanced at Lin Feng. She then threw her ring at him and said, "There are all sorts of liquors inside. Just help yourself." Hee hee. Lin Feng scratched his head and smiled, looking embarrassed. That alcohol was expensive, he was feeling a bit embarrassed. Junimo, she glanced at Lin Feng, he found him funny. In a flash, many bottles appeared, making people drool. That alcohol smelt invigorating. Lin Feng, try and guess who the 8th one will be, said Junimo she at that moment, drinking more alcohol. I guess Qi Ling Shao. Why? Just a feeling, it won't necessarily be him though. I'm not really sure, said Lin Feng and then drank another sip. Maybe, said Junimo she before adding, it doesn't depend on strength anyways. Everyone has their own strengths. For example, Qi Ling Shao is an expert at using swords. Even though I came out before him, he might still be stronger than me and could defeat me. You came out after Di Ling, but maybe he's not stronger than you either, said Lin Feng, which surprised Junimo she, and then they laughed together. At that moment, an extremely sharp qi emerged in the air. The crowd saw two silhouettes come out of the Flood Dragon cave. Just like Lin Feng had guessed, one of them was Qi Ling Shao and the other one was Lu Yuqin Yu Shao Shao. Are they lovers? Asked Lin Feng. It is said that Qi Ling Shao is interested in Yu Shao Shao, but that Yu Shao Shao is ice-cold and expressionless. Of course, I don't know the precise details, replied Junimo she. Oh. Lin Feng nodded. Qi Ling Shao had obtained the 8th jade key and Yu Shao Shao the 9th one. Very quickly, the top 10 appeared. Ku Yao Tong the dead tree was the 10th one out. The 8 most outstanding geniuses of Xueyu had all come out, but they were not first or second. The first and the second had been really unexpected, Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu. The next one will be from Dragon Mountain, said Junimo she confidently. Lin Feng was surprised. He then watched the entrance to check if Junimo she's guess was right. After a short time, a person with a magnificent smile appeared. It was Qing Meng Exin. She looked beautiful as she could make men's hearts shake. Chapter 635. The end of the second round. Lin Feng was surprised. Junimo she had guessed right for the 11th person. It was Qing Meng Xing. How could you be so sure? Asked Lin Feng. Because Qing Meng Xin is like me, she knows the 1,000 dream shadows. So with her strength I was convinced she would come out now, said Tang Yuyu, not giving time for Junimo she to reply. The 1,000 dream shadows. Lin Feng was surprised. Indeed, in Celestial River he had already seen a woman use it that used to stay with Lan Jiao. That attack not only belonged to the Tang clan but the Cosmic Pavilion as well. Are the 1,000 Shadows technique and the 1,000 Dream Shadows different? Asked Lin Feng. Generally speaking, asking other people about their skills and techniques was impolite, especially during the great competition of Xueyu. Tang Yuyu and him might end up as opponents at some point. Lin Feng knew her and was making friends, but he didn't know much about her. However, Lin Feng was still asking that question. That was a bit audacious and rude. However, he didn't seem to realize that his question was impolite. He was the type of person that didn't care about formalities. Of course, not caring about those things meant that he considered her as a good friend, and that he trusted her. The 1,000 Dream Shadows creates illusions which invade the atmosphere. You don't know which ones are true and which ones are fake. The 1,000 Shadows creates clones with real bodies. It uses the power of the soul and belongs to my clan, the Tang clan. You need to have the blood of the Tang clan to be able to use it, explained Tang Yuyu. She wasn't hiding anything from Lin Feng. However, he felt extremely sad for her. What you mean is that when you use it, if your clones get destroyed, you get injured? Whispered Lin Feng. A moment before, Tang Yuyu had used her clones to open the way on the bridge, and she had done Lin Feng could pass. She even used the attack twice. They had all been destroyed, so Tang Yuyu must be injured. Tang Yuyu didn't reply. That silence was proving that Lin Feng was right. And then you say you're fine? Your soul got injured. Your alcohol won't be enough to cure you, said Lin Feng, blaming her for telling him that she was fine. Junimo she was looking at them and asked, are you guys dating? Lin Feng was speechless. That guy thought he was funny. Blood soul grass. Lin Feng suddenly remembered something when he looked at Jun Emoshi. He then shook his hand and some red and shiny grass appeared. That was very beneficial for people's souls. Huh. Jun Emoshi looked at Lin Feng and was stupefied. The first time he had seen Lin Feng, Jun Emoshi's servant had fought against him over that grass. Many people looked over at them. Lin Feng had some blood soul grass. That stuff was extremely precious and it was very beneficial for people's souls. A lot of people around Lin Feng looked greedy all of a sudden. "What are you doing?" said Tang Yuyu. She obviously knew what Lin Feng was holding. "It will make you feel better." said Lin Feng while giving it to her. "I still need some so I can only give you half of it. Have a try." Tang Yuyu's eyes were twinkling. She remained silent but then Jun Emoshi said, "He's giving it to you, just take it." She stretched her beautiful, slim hand and took the grass. Her beautiful eyes were twinkling. She then put the grass in her mouth, chewed and swallowed it. Immediately her soul felt better. That grass was indeed very useful for people's souls. "You really obtained some?" said Qing Meng Xian at that moment while walking towards them. Last time, she was the one who had told Lin Feng to go to the cosmic market to get some. Qing Meng Xian's sentence also proved something else. She was telling Lin Feng that she knew his secret, that he was the real Lin Feng. "Indeed, thank you again," said Lin Feng, smiling again. Tang Yuyu and Qing Meng Xian were really nice. "You surprisingly gave her some of the most important ingredient of the pills you want to concoct. I am jealous," said Qing Meng Xian jokingly. When Tang Yuyu heard her, she looked at Lin Feng and asked, "What pills do you want to concoct?" "Divine water pills. I need to save one for my friend." "Don't worry, I gave you half of the grass so I still have enough for my pills, no problem," explained Lin Feng while shaking his head. Divine water pills to save someone. Tang Yuyu was stupefied. Lin Feng wanted to concoct some pills to save someone's life and she had eaten one of the main ingredients. She lowered her head and remained silent. Qing Meng Xian sat down with them and asked, "What jade keys did you guys get?" Lin Feng opened his hand and Qing Meng Xian was flabbergasted. "The first jade key. It actually belongs to Tang Yuyu but she gave it to me. She took the second one instead," said Lin Feng. Qing Meng Xian was even more astonished. Lin Feng had taken the first and Tang Yuyu the second one? She was extremely surprised by the results of the race. As expected, the 1,000 shadows of the Tang clan is monstrously powerful, whispered Qing Meng Xian, and then she looked at Jun Emoshi. "I got the fifth one," said Jun Emoshi smiling. Qing Meng Xian was more and more surprised. The first, the second, the fifth. Duan Wu Dao had also finished in the first ones. The results of the race were great. "Don't choose me as your opponent, guys," joked Qing Meng Xian. She looked so beautiful. She didn't want to fight against the 8 most dazzling geniuses, and especially not against Lin Feng or Tang Yuyu. But she was very surprised by the results. The first time she had seen Lin Feng, she hadn't thought that he was that strong, but here he is holding the first key. She didn't think that Lin Feng had been lucky though. Luck might have played a certain role during the second round, but that key also required strength. Lin Feng wouldn't have been able to obtain the first key only relying on luck. Maybe Lin Feng will surprise us even more later on, thought Qing Meng Xian. The great competition of Shuiyu was always full of surprises. This time, Lin Feng might become an unexpected winner. Therefore, she didn't want to fight against him, especially that early. Time was passing slowly as more people finished. The first thing people were wondering when they came out was that they would have to be careful. So many others had come out before them, so they would end up being chosen by strong cultivators. Lin Feng also paid attention to the people who were coming out. Yu Tianming had finished 21st, Nie Yun from Tianfeng had finished 18th, and the 2 other people from Tianfeng had finished 40th and 50th. Lin Feng wouldn't care about those 2. Jian Chen had finished 24th. Lin Feng was astonished by Yun Fei Yang though. After the 50th came out, Yun Fei Yang walked out of the cave slowly. He didn't look ashamed at all as he walked towards them, sat down and drank alcohol. He looked natural, free and unrestrained. Lin Feng was speechless. Finally, after the 64th candidate finished, nobody else came out. The 4 others would never come out, they had died in the Flood Dragon Cave. Since the beginning, 80 people had died already. Some people were sad about that, of course. But their sadness was mixed with excitement. The second round was over. This time, the third round would be different from the 2 previous ones. This time strength mattered most. Chapter 636. Immobile like a mountain, Xue Wuchang looked at the group of geniuses. There were 64 all standing on the fighting stage. Some stood alone while others had joined groups. Surprisingly, the biggest group was the one composed of Lin Feng and his friends. There were 5 people drinking and chatting. The others were different. They looked serious and solemn. They weren't as relaxed as Lin Feng and his friends. "Congratulations on making it so far," said Xue Wuchang. In a flash, everybody's attention was on Xue Wuchang, even those who were usually sluggish and negligent. The last round of the great competition of Xueyu is about to start. Real battles. "Now everybody, let's climb out Flood Dragon Cave," said Xue Wuchang while pointing at the exit. Even though there was only one exit, at the top of it, there was enough space to accommodate 64 people. Silhouettes flickered and they all climbed onto the tail of the Flood Dragon Cave. Then they sat down cross-legged. "Let's go," said Zhu Nimoshi to Lin Feng and their other friends. Lin Feng downed a flask of hot unit and sharp lights twinkled in his eyes. The last round of the great competition of Xueyu was about to start. Lin Feng shook his arm and the bottles of alcohol on the floor disappeared. Lin Feng and his friends stood up and jumped onto the Flood Dragon. They were waiting for Xue Wuchang. "Now, show your keys so that everyone can see them," said Xue Wuchang, and everybody obeyed. Xue Wuchang wanted to see the numbers at first glance. Even though those numbers didn't reflect people's strength, it still gave everybody an indication about their potential. Who's the first one? Many people who had come out after didn't know who the first one was. They were curious to find out who it was. "Huh," several people frowned. They first looked at Di Ling, but it wasn't him. Then they looked at Duan Wu Dao, Zhu Nimoshi. They were 3rd, 4th, and 5th. "Where are the first and the second?" Some of them asked, getting impatient. "There," someone shouted as they found Lin Feng. They were astonished. Everyone looked at the key and then raised their heads to look at the face of the person holding it. Most were astonished, but some looked particularly excited though. Lin Feng? Lin Feng was full of vitality but had only broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer. When the crowd saw that people were looking at Lin Feng mockingly, they also burst into laughter. How could they not be amused? What a lucky guy. Such a piece of trash surprisingly managed to obtain the key, said someone who was laughing mockingly. Lin Feng turned his head and saw one of the 7 envoys. He had the 58th key in his hand. But he was still making fun of Lin Feng because of his cultivation level. He was trying to make himself look better by making fun of the first place to make up for his near last place key. End of the rankings. 6th one from the bottom, said Lin Feng indifferently, and then he didn't pay attention to that person anymore. People from Tianfeng were astonished, especially the 3rd envoy. Lin Feng had just humiliated them. Piece of trash. If you're brave, choose me then, said the 3rd envoy from Tianfeng coldly. He was the 6th one from the end, but he wanted to prove to everyone that he was strong. Lin Feng was the first one, so if he killed Lin Feng he would prove to everyone that he was strong. But Lin Feng ignored him. He despised him. After the crowd got over their surprise that Lin Feng had obtained the first key, they looked for the second one. There was a beautiful woman on his side, Tang Yu. People were astonished again. Surprisingly, the first and second positions weren't held by the 8 most outstanding geniuses of the competition. Alright, let's start the 3rd round. I would like to remind you that it is here where you will be able to dazzle. Even if you didn't get a good key, you can still finish as a dazzling participant. You will also be able to obtain some treasures from Shun Gong if you live. If you die, then you won't obtain anything, said Xue Wuchang slowly. Everyone looked even more impatient. Indeed, being able to be on the fighting stage at the great competition of Xueyu was an honor, a glorious moment. But knowing that they would also obtain some kind of treasure from it, Shin Gong would be good to them. If you finish higher up in the rankings you will obtain even more amazing treasures, added Xue Wuchang, making everybody feel even more determined. Alright, let's start now. Lin Feng, you're first, said Shui Wuchang, nodding at Lin Feng. In a flash, Lin Feng jumped in the middle of the stage. Lin Feng, you obtained the first key, so you are the first one to choose. You can challenge anyone except for those that finished in the top 10. The crowd was focused on Lin Feng. They were impatient to see who he was going to choose. With his strength, he was probably going to choose one of the worst ones. Lin Feng glanced at the crowd. There weren't many people who were afraid of him. Actually, many people hoped to be chosen. They all wanted to defeat the one who had obtained the first key. That would be a prestigious victory. Finally, Lin Feng looked at the third envoy who was also staring him down. The third envoy wasn't weak at all, and he took the initiative to stand up. He was smiling coldly. He was already getting ready to fight. So many people want to fight against me because I have the first key, right? Said Lin Feng, upset. He then looked at the third envoy and said, since you really want to fight, just come over then. The third envoy smiled and jumped forwards. He would face Lin Feng. You piece of shit. You're really a piece of trash. I will show you how a real man fights, said the third envoy coldly. Lin Feng slowly raised his head and looked at Shui Wuchang. Mister, can we start fighting? No need to look at me. You are on the stage, just start, said Shui Wuchang. Lin Feng slightly nodded. The third envoy looked prouder and prouder each second. The third envoy immediately jumped into the air and threw himself at Lin Feng. There was an illusion around his body that looked like an elephant. That third envoy was a member of the Wanxiang sect. He had the 10,000 elephant skill as well and was releasing a monstrous amount of wild energy. He looked furious, staring at Lin Feng in a bestial way. You will not withstand a single attack. The strength of my 10,000 elephants will crush you. First one? Ridiculous, you piece of shit. A terrifying energy flowed out of his mouth. He was moving towards Lin Feng with the appearance of an elephant. Around him were strong winds making Lin Feng's clothes flutter in the wind. Lin Feng looked like a leaf about to move in the wind. Die! Boom! The strength of 10,000 elephants crashed onto Lin Feng's body. A monstrous wind invaded the entire atmosphere. The crowd already had the impression that they could see Lin Feng crushed under that strength. However, a monstrously loud buzzing sound spread in the air suddenly. The third envoy's body abruptly stopped when it collided against Lin Feng. The strong winds were emitting whistling sounds, but Lin Feng was absolutely immobile, like a mountain. He looked calm and serene, looking at the elephant-like third envoy. Boom! The crowd was astonished, especially the middle-aged man of the Wanxiang sect, who immediately stood up. His heart was pounding while he watched Lin Feng. What was going on? Huh! The third envoy looked stunned too. He slowly raised his head and looked at Lin Feng. His fists landed on Lin Feng's chest, but Lin Feng was still standing there, looking calm, serene, and peaceful, like a deity. That move made the third envoy's heart palpitate violently. He then started quivering with fear. His 10,000 elephants' attack seemed like it had been useless. His heart felt like it was melting at that moment. He was terrified. Chapter 637. One death and one coward. How's that possible? Thought the third envoy. He didn't understand what was going on. Lin Feng had only broken through to the 5th Shenqi layer, but his corporeal body was already so strong. However, the third envoy had broken through to the 6th Shenqi layer, performed an amazing attack. Even someone of the 7th or 8th Shenqi layer would find it difficult to resist his 10,000 elephants attack. Some have already died by that attack. But Lin Feng resisted, not moving a single iota. Like a mountain, he was extremely calm and serene. His corporeal body was way too strong. Lin Feng's strength of the Haruka could rotate 6,000 times. With his body of the Haruka now and his indestructible golden body skill. Besides, he had other powerful skills too. Lin Feng's body was monstrously resistant and solid. He didn't know how strong he was himself, but what he knew was that the third envoy was extremely weak. You are so weak, said Lin Feng calmly while looking at the third envoy. If I'm a piece of shit, what are you? Asked Lin Feng to the third envoy, who was speechless. He had thought that with his 10,000 elephant skills, he would manage to crush Lin Feng instantly. What would he do now? Lin Feng was a piece of shit, a piece of trash? What about him then? Lin Feng hadn't moved of a single iota after his strongest attack. Being able to participate at the great competition of Shuiyu is an honor, a privilege. Besides, we have the opportunity to receive some treasures from Shengong which will help us improve our understanding of cultivation and thus our strength. Explained Lin Feng slowly, which puzzled the third envoy. Why was Lin Feng telling him that? Unfortunately, you will not have the chance to enjoy that glory and those privileges. You are too weak and now so I will kill you. Continued Lin Feng slowly, which made the third envoy's heart start pounding violently. Lin Feng was going to kill him. Lin Feng put his hand on the third envoy's shoulder. He wouldn't be able to escape, that hand was way too powerful. Lin Feng's hand became extremely hot as several flames appeared on it. Quickly the third envoy looked terrified as a gigantic fire appeared all around his body. He started burning alive. I will burn you to death. That is what someone with an ice-cold heart like yours deserves, said Lin Feng while slowly pulling his hand away from him. The third envoy started shouting blood-curdling shrieks. He was going to burn to death. He wanted to extinguish the fire but it didn't work. That fire seemed like it had become a part of his body. It continued burning without interruption. Then, he turned into ashes and disappeared with the wind. Lin Feng had killed him. The crowd was astonished. Lin Feng had burnt the third envoy to death. That battle had been amazing. Boom! A terrifying energy surrounded Lin Feng's body. He slowly turned around and looked at the crowd, more precisely at the middle-aged man from Tianfeng. You dared kill him? Moron, said Lin Feng, then he turned around and ignored him. He went back to his seat. People from Tianfeng wanted to kill him but it wasn't so easy. Previously, the strong cultivators from Tianfeng had almost killed him. After that, Lin Feng had promised himself that those people were the first ones he would kill. Now he was just keeping promises. Now that middle-aged man dared get angry at Lin Feng for having killed the third envoy. What a moron! Moron? The strong cultivator of the Wan Xiang sect was astonished. He wanted to slaughter Lin Feng. Alright, get ready for the second battle, said Shui Wuchang, pointing at Tang Yuyu. Tang Yuyu jumped forwards and without hesitation, she pointed at the second envoy from Tianfeng. He had the 43rd key. You, said Tang Yuyu. He was astonished and pulled a long face. Tang Yuyu was helping Lin Feng once again. She wanted to kill him. Tang Yuyu wasn't like Lin Feng. Even though she had obtained the second jade key, nobody was surprised because she had broken through to the very top of the 7th Xianqi layer. The second envoy or even Ye Yun would have no chance against her. The middle-aged man of Tianfeng was speechless and furious. The second envoy was going to die. Was that simple? From the 7 envoys, only one would be left? Ye Yun? Tang Yuyu was Lin Feng's friend so she wouldn't let them off. Are you proud? Said Lin Feng while looking at the middle-aged man. Lin Feng found Tang Yuyu adorable. If you are scared, you can give up but you must give up all the treasures, said Shui Wuchang when he saw that the second envoy was terrified. If he fought, he would lose everything and he would be humiliated. But if Tang Yuyu wanted to kill him, he would probably die there. His thoughts were chaotic at that moment and after a while he decided, I give up. He looked extremely weak and terrified. Being able to participate at the great competition of Shuiyu was an honor. It would have been prestigious to go back to Tianfeng and brag about it, but now he had given up. He wouldn't be able to tell anyone about the battles of the competition, because he had been too scared and had given up. He wouldn't enjoy the glory of having participated. Coward, piss off then, said Shui Wuchang despisingly. He had managed to make it so far and was now giving up. Such people were cowards. When the second envoy heard Shui Wuchang, he was astonished. The old man despised him. And everybody else did. What a horrible humiliation. He then started walking away and left. Lin Feng looked at the second envoy in a calm and serene way. The second envoy had acted so aggressively and arrogantly before, but now he was giving up so easily. Tang Yuyu moved back next to Lin Feng. During the first battle, one of them had died. And the second battle had never taken place because a coward had given up. People were really surprised. The third battle was extremely fast. Di Ling had crushed his opponent in one punch. All the battles of the 8 most outstanding geniuses of Xueyu were that way. They could easily crush the weakest ones. Lin Feng paid particular attention to Yu Tianming and Wu Qing, who won though. Those two people had broken through to the very top of the 6th Xianqi layer and were about to break through to the 7th. They had all become much stronger since they left for Dragon Mountain. Yu Qing Shan and Teng Wuyao felt gratified and were smiling resplendently. Once in a while, they were glancing back to the other as if they had been battling too. Yu Qing Shan was finally convinced that Yu Tianming was stronger than Wu Qing. His grandson would also surpass him, he would only need a few years. But Teng Wuqing was also convinced that Wu Qing was as strong as Yu Tianming and would soon become stronger than him. Lin Feng didn't care about those things. He knew that Yu Tianming and Wu Qing would lose against him at some point. The one who had obtained the 28th Jade Key challenged Yun Fei Yang. Lin Feng glanced at him. The one who had the 28th Jade Key had broken through to the 7th Xianqi layer. Many people had died during the first rounds, but he had survived. In Xueyu, a cultivator of the 7th Xianqi layer was already considered strong. However, at the competition he had only managed to obtain the 28th key and everybody was extremely young here. Yun Fei Yang had broken through to the 6th Xianqi layer after the first round in the evil area. He had probably obtained some incredible treasure that had helped him. Yun Fei Yang might surprise everyone once again. He took out a flask of alcohol and downed it. Then he walked towards the middle of the fighting stage sluggishly. Chapter 638, Cosmic Force. The opponent was surprised when he saw how sluggish Yun Fei Yang looked. It seemed like Yun Fei Yang was acting different. He wasn't like those who had obtained the last Jade Keys. They usually looked weak and scared. They lacked self-confidence. However, Yun Fei Yang was different. His eyes were twinkling. He looked calm and unperturbed, almost peaceful. He had ranked 50th this time and didn't look scared at all. He just looked calm and unrestrained. The opponent looked at Yun Fei Yang in a strange way and said, "I am stronger than you by 1 cultivation layer and during the second round I finished 28th. You will not have a single chance of touching me if we fight. I suggest you give up." The opponent was trying to discourage him. He didn't want to fight. The great competition of Xueyu was getting more and more complicated, so not fighting was a good way of reserving strength and energy. "Why are you not giving up then?" asked Yun Fei Yang. The other was stupefied. "My cultivation level is higher than yours. Why would I give up?" "The cultivation level doesn't necessarily mean everything," said Yun Fei Yang indifferently. Immediately after, he jumped forwards and the atmosphere started shaking. "What's going on?" The crowd was astonished. Their hearts started palpitating. Things looked dangerous. Yun Fei Yang's opponent was astonished too. His heart was shaking at the same pace as Yun Fei Yang's steps. The sensation was becoming more and more intense. "The cultivation level is only one aspect of your actual strength. Physical strength is also important," said Yun Fei Yang. Then he started running. His feet were bombarding the floor of the fighting stage. Some qi emerged out of his body. It seemed like lights were appearing all around. At the same time, some qi moved towards his opponent. The force of the planet is amazing. When practicing cultivation you can condense force, borrow it from the earth to perform energy attacks. Your kind of force is only a little help," said Yun Fei Yang slowly. He then slowed down too. He was using his feet and force to make the opponent's entire body shake violently. The opponent felt extremely oppressed. Yun Fei Yang's voice was resonating in people's brains and hearts. Everybody's hearts were beating faster and faster. Yun Fei Yang's qi was gaining in intensity. There were massive amounts of forces all around him. Lin Feng was watching Yun Fei Yang. Now he looked much stronger than the last time in Dragon Mountain. Yun Fei Yang's qi was becoming terrifying. It seemed like it was becoming a person in itself. "Force can be very beneficial, enough so to make the difference," said Yun Fei Yang. He had a very deep understanding of cultivation. Yun Fei Yang was facing an extremely strong cultivator. That opponent didn't feel like fighting anymore. It seemed like his confidence and determination had been crushed. His heart kept pounding. so loudly that he could even hear his own heartbeat mixed in with Yun Fei Yang's voice. Force is an aspect of cultivation, it belongs to the planet. One's own body, strength, etc. can become force, and then it can turn into the abstruse significance. Continued Yun Fei Yang. The abstruse significance was the step after level 9 intent. Everybody knew about that. Yun Fei Yang was able to explain intent and the abstruse significance quite well. Xue Wuchang looked surprised, sharp lights were twinkling in his eyes. He was fixated on Yun Fei Yang. What a real genius, thought Xue Wuchang at that moment. Yun Fei Yang was surprising. Yun Fei Yang's words helped everybody understand those concepts better. However, they knew that being able to walk in perfect cadence with those forces was extremely hard. It was terrifying. He was in perfect harmony with cosmic waves. Yun Fei Yang had reached such a deep level of understanding, he was indeed very talented. As expected, there are real geniuses here, thought Xue Wuchang, smiling. Yun Fei Yang had to keep living, people like him were extremely rare. Everyone's opinions were changing. They didn't think that Yun Fei Yang was going to lose anymore, he looked like a winner. Even if his cultivation level was lower than that of his opponent. Of course, force has limits and people's strength too. However, on the great path of cultivation, there might not be limits. Boom! Yun Fei Yang's step made the entire atmosphere and everyone's hearts shake. Even though Yun Fei Yang had only stepped on the floor very lightly. Each time Yun Fei Yang walks, there is force. He tries to understand it better with each step. At that moment, his force was becoming more and more intense. There were even some strong winds surrounding around him. Yun Fei Yang's opponent was already in the middle of those winds. Therefore, strength is good but it doesn't mean everything. Some other factors can influence your cultivation. Finished Yun Fei Yang. The cadence of his steps was becoming more and more intense. Boom! Everyone was hypnotized by Yun Fei Yang's steps. Each time he walked, their body would start shaking. This time, Yun Fei Yang didn't stop. The atmosphere was shaking more and more violently, it seemed like it was going to explode. Everywhere, there was only his force. Suddenly, the cultivator of the 7th Xianqi layer was projected away in the air. Blood was splashing out of his mouth. He then crashed onto the ground with a muffled sound. The crowd was fixedly staring at that cultivator of the 7th Xianqi layer. He had lost. Yun Fei Yang had broken through to the 6th Xianqi layer, but with those steps he made his opponent fly away in defeat. He had only needed a few, very simple steps to make everybody's hearts pound, nothing else. Nobody would ever forget Yun Fei Yang. That move had been too astonishing. Yun Fei Yang looked calm and serene, just like a moment before. Nobody knew what he was thinking, but he didn't look arrogant at all. He didn't try to humiliate his opponent or anything, he just asked, "Do you want to continue the battle?" That person was crawling on the floor, with his blood flowing out of his mouth. He shook his head and said, "No need, you won. That was a very good battle and a great victory for you. I really need to practice more. Thank you for what you taught me." "Don't worry. I'm off," said Yun Fei Yang, nodding and then moving back to his original place. "What a mysterious and enigmatic guy," said Lin Feng while smiling. He was really astonished. Lin Feng also wanted to understand the concept of force even more. Lin Feng wanted to understand that cadence and harmony between Yun Fei Yang's steps and the cosmic waves. Everybody was staring at Yun Fei Yang in a different way. That guy was an authentic genius. "Am I mysterious?" said Yun Fei Yang while shrugging and smiling. Yun Fei Yang had won the battle, even though his ki was one of the last ones. He had proved to everybody that it didn't mean anything. His victory had been dazzling. Chapter 639. Astonishing choice against all expectations. The following battles were extremely equitable because they were in the middle of the rankings. The battles were very interesting to watch. All sorts of people were winning and losing, from the middle of the rankings as well as from the bottom. In the end, 32 battles finished. 64 people had fought, 32 had been eliminated. Those who had been eliminated were extremely disappointed, but they knew that it was because they weren't strong enough. Of course, they were still alive, so there was still some hope. Amongst the 32 people who had been eliminated, 2 had died and 1 had escaped. There was no hope for them anymore. Fighting had taught the losers a lot. They had understood why strong cultivators were strong, what made them strong. They had lost, but Shengong would still honor their presence. That mysterious Shengong would probably grant people with incredible treasures which would help them increase their cultivation level. That's what the losers were hoping for. Of course, thinking that way was also a way of comforting themselves for having lost. After all, they had already been eliminated. Their dream of making it to the last battles had disappeared. Shui Wuchang looked at the geniuses, slightly smiled and said, "Have a rest for 12 hours and get ready for the next series of battles." The second series of battles would be everybody's second. Most people in the crowd closed their eyes or practiced some skills when they heard him. They either practiced cultivation or were waiting for their pure chi stocks to be filled up again. Others' silhouettes flickered and they landed in the middle of the common crowd to talk to people from their clans or sections. They were consulting their relatives to seek advice about who they should challenge for the next battle. Lin Feng and his friends surprisingly sat down and kept drinking. They looked quite relaxed. Lin Feng looked at Yun Fei Yang, smiled and said, "Yun Fei Yang, tell me, are you not hiding your real cultivation level?" Yun Fei Yang seemed like he had some secrets. The first time Lin Feng had met him, he had only broken through to the 4th Xianqi layer. But then he had very quickly broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer. However, during the first round in the evil area, he had already broken through to the 6th Xianqi layer. He was becoming stronger and stronger extremely fast, too fast to be true. Lin Feng was even more intrigued because Yun Fei Yang had an extremely high power of understanding and monstrous strength, but he had ranked 50th during the second round. How strange. He only obtained the 50th key. Lin Feng didn't believe that Yun Fei Yang had only broken through to the 6th Xianqi layer. He believed that his cultivation level was even higher than that. "Guess," said Yun Fei Yang. "I can't see it, but I have the feeling that you're much stronger," said Lin Feng, looking over to Jun Emoshi and Tang Yuyu. "I don't know," said Tang Yuyu. Jun Emoshi's eyes were twinkling. He was looking at Yun Fei Yang in a strange way. Yun Fei Yang and Lin Feng were very similar. They looked insignificant, calm, not arrogant, serene. They didn't draw people's attention too much, but in fact, each time they fought they were astonishing. "You are both so evil," joked Jun Emoshi. It seemed like he agreed with Lin Feng about Yun Fei Yang. However, Jun Emoshi also had doubts when it came to Lin Feng. He doubted that Lin Feng was showing his full strength. "What does that have to do with me?" teased Lin Feng. "Indeed, it has nothing to do with you. You've only broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer, but you obtained the first Jade Key. You finished even before those cultivators of the 8th and 9th Xianqi layer," whispered Jun Emoshi. Lin Feng smiled from the corner of his mouth. He liked to tease his friends too. Half a day passed very quickly. "All right, it's time to continue," said Shui Wuchang. Everybody suddenly looked solemn and serious. They all moved to the Flood Dragon statue again. They were psychologically preparing themselves. It was about to start again. From those 32 people, only 16 would be left after this series of battles. Those 16 people would be able to continue. After those 16 people's battles, there would only be 8 left. Then the top 10 would appear, and more particularly the top 8. The most dazzling young people of the great competition of Shuiyu would finally be recognized. Being one of the 8 most dazzling cultivators of the competition would be an extreme glory and honor for them. They would go back to their country, one of the 13 countries of Shuiyu, and would be recognized as incredible cultivators. At the same time, the competition was a great way to become stronger. After competing, their cultivation level would be much higher. It would increase their self-confidence, determination, and willpower. Of course, it wasn't over yet, so it was useless to dream about those things. First, they had to win their next 2 battles, which wouldn't be that easy at all. Apart from Lin Feng and Yun Fei Yang and another cultivator of the 6th Xianqi layer, all the others had broken at least through to the 7th Xianqi layer, at least. Apart from strength and abilities, luck also played a role. For some people, being able to choose their opponents was really a great luck. "Lin Feng, it's your turn," said Shui Wuchang. Lin Feng was, after all, the first of them. Lin Feng slightly nodded and jumped forwards. He was facing 31 extremely strong cultivators. Who was he going to choose this time? Yun Fei Yang was the weakest of all, but he was monstrously strong. On top of that, he was Lin Feng's good friend, so they couldn't choose each other. Apart from Yun Fei Yang, there was only one other person of the 6th Xianqi layer. Everybody looked at that person. Lin Feng had to choose him if he wanted to win. That cultivator felt tense when he sensed that everybody was looking at him. He had lots of pressure at that moment. Well, fighting against him would be my best option, thought that person. Apart from Lin Feng, the next ones would all be terrifying. Maybe the best option was to be chosen by Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at him too, his eyes were twinkling. That person then said, "Let's fight." A terrifying battle energy then rose up in the air. However, what astonished him was that Lin Feng wasn't looking at him anymore. Lin Feng wasn't going to choose him? That person of the 6th Xianqi layer was scared again. If Lin Feng didn't choose him, that person would lose for sure. He felt like he had been eliminated already, completely dispirited. The crowd was also astonished to see that Lin Feng wasn't choosing him. He had broken through to the 6th Xianqi layer, so he was the best choice. Lin Feng was the first one to choose, so that was also a great opportunity for him, but it seemed like he wasn't going to use it. Lin Feng then slowly turned his head and looked at Nie Yun, then at Wu Qing. Lin Feng looked hesitant. Is Lin Feng scared to fight? Thought the crowd. Lin Feng seemed so irresolute. Some things need to be sorted, thought Lin Feng. Immediately after, he looked at Yu Tianming. Yu Tianming was speechless when he saw that Lin Feng was looking at him. Was he going to choose him? Lin Feng had no reason to choose him though. "Come here," said Lin Feng indifferently. Yu Tianming was astonished. Lin Feng was really looking at him and was really choosing him. He didn't understand why though. He had broken through to the 7th Xianqi layer and there were others that were much weaker than him. He had never had a conflict with him. Why was he choosing him? Yu Tianming wasn't the only one who was astonished. Everybody else was, including Yu Qingshan. Why was that Lin Feng challenging Yu Tianming? Chapter 640. Insect. Yu Tianming didn't understand. Yu Qingshan and the crowd were puzzled. But since Lin Feng had chosen him, Yu Tianming had no choice. Yu Tianming then jumped forwards and landed in the middle of the fighting stage. Yu Tianming was convinced that he was going to win the battle. He would then be part of the 16 best and would obtain some incredible treasures from Shengong. He would go back to Xueyu as a glorious hero. He had no reason to forfeit. He could easily defeat Lin Feng. The two silhouettes were facing each other. Yu Tianming released some monstrous swift and fierce qi. He still didn't understand Lin Feng's choice though. During the last battle, with his strength of the 5th Xianqi layer, Lin Feng had remained immobile like a mountain under the 10,000 elephants attack of the Wanxiang sect. His body was extremely solid, but Yu Tianming was going to be very careful for precisely that reason. But Yu Tianming still remained confident. Without self-confidence, how would he win? Besides, Lin Feng's cultivation level was also quite low. There was no reason for Yu Tianming not to win. "I'm telling you, choosing me was your biggest mistake during the great competition of Xueyu," said Yu Tianming. He continued with an ice-cold voice, "You will regret that choice, and the price for it will be a heavy." Lin Feng looked at Yu Tianming and said, shaking his head, "Since it's my choice, I bear the responsibility for it and will not regret anything. I chose you and now that can't be changed, so there is no need to talk nonsense. Let's fight and see whom will regret. Show me your real strength and prove to me that I was wrong. Show me your real strength and prove me that I was wrong." Lin Feng's words were resonating in Yu Tianming's head. He suddenly looked calm and solemn as he released some terrifying energy. Pure qi was whistling in the air and enveloped Lin Feng's body. The pressure was strong. Yu Qingshan's white hair was fluttering in the crowd. He looked proud. Yu Tianming was starting the battle. Considering the opponent, he had to win. "Tianming, use him as your stepping stone on the path of cultivation. You will reach the clouds," whispered Yu Qingshan. "He will lose," said someone not far from him though. It was Xiaoya. Xiaoya looked convinced and she was smiling confidently. My brother will not lose, it's impossible, said Xiaoya with a resplendent smile on her face. Yu Qingshan was furious, how could she be so convinced? Indeed, our brother cannot lose, said Han Man, clenching his fists. He was also convinced by Lin Feng's abilities. Lin Feng had to win. Let's see, said Yu Qingshan with a smile on his face. But in his heart, he didn't feel calm and serene at all. Yu Tianming had gone through so many hardships and suffered through many difficulties. Losing now would mean the end of his dazzling cultivation career. Let's fight, shouted Yu Tianming furiously. He then released some monstrous pure qi. He was using all the strength of the 7th Shen Qi layer without controlling himself. He was using all his strength. Boom! His pure qi seemed like it was going to explode. Yu Tianming's hands were emitting whistling sounds and moving towards Lin Feng at full speed. But at that moment, Lin Feng looked calm and serene. He just moved like the wind, looking natural, free and unperturbed. Lin Feng opened his mouth and started chanting some mantra in Sanskrit. It seemed like his mantras were thousands of years old. Magnificent golden Sanskrit letters appeared in the air after each word. There was a golden aura around Lin Feng's body. That golden aura was dazzling. He looked like a Shakyamuni Buddha, pure and holy, illuminating the world with his wisdom. What's that skill? The crowd wondered. Watch Lin Feng. He was finally using a real skill. Lin Feng then abruptly stopped. He looked like a statue. Buzz? Yu Tianming's hands landed on Lin Feng and the sound of a bell spread in the air. Lin Feng, with his indestructible golden body, hadn't moved of a single iota, just like a mountain. That's Lin Feng's authentic strength. The crowd was shivering. His Shakyamuni body was incredible. His body had turned into a real Buddha statue. Yu Tianming had broken through to the 7th Shen Qi layer, but just like Lin Feng's previous battle, he hadn't moved a single iota. Yu Tianming was astonished. He had the feeling that his hands had crashed onto an indestructible statue. Yu Qingshan was astonished. Was that Lin Feng? That cultivator of the 5th Shen Qi layer had turned into a Buddha statue and had felt nothing from Yu Tianming's attack. Die. Yu Tianming released some more pure qi and continued bombarding Lin Feng's body. The golden light was breaking apart, bit by bit. But would it break? Lin Feng was looking at Yu Tianming unperturbed. He then said, "You will have no opportunity to hurt me. In front of me, you are a tiny little insect. You are a coward. You are absolutely incompetent. You can only look up at me," said Lin Feng calmly. Yu Tianming was astonished. He had very high natural abilities and had put so much effort into his cultivation. He had never stopped becoming stronger because he had always hoped to become one of the 4 best cultivators of Shuiyu. He wanted to dazzle. Yu Tianming had managed to become one of the 8 high officials of Shuiyu. He was respected and admired by everyone. For the Yu clan, Yu Tianming was a treasure. Now, he was standing on the fighting stage at the great competition of Shuiyu. He wanted to go back to Shuiyu as a glorious cultivator. He wanted to show to his aunt that apart from her, there was another genius in the Yu clan. But Lin Feng, with his Buddha body, was despising him and calling him an insect. Yu Tianming didn't want to admit it, but his pure qi had reached its limits. He couldn't do anything against Lin Feng. He couldn't injure him. Therefore Yu Tianming realized that even with his best skills, all he would be able to do would be to make Lin Feng's body shake a little bit. Breaking Lin Feng's body would be too difficult. Yu Tianming couldn't break Lin Feng's body, so how would he be able to defeat him? He started to get dispirited. His self-confidence was disappearing. "Tianming, don't give up," shouted Yu Qingshan furiously when he saw that Yu Tianming was starting to look dispirited. Yu Tianming shivered and raised his head. He suddenly looked furious and tough again. Arf! In Yu Tianming's back appeared his celestial fang spirit. There were 6 dragon heads on it, and those heads were looking at Lin Feng in a despising manner. "Die!" shouted Yu Tianming furiously. The 6 heads showed their teeth and moved towards Lin Feng. Golden hands. Lin Feng's golden Sanskrit letters turned into a gigantic hand and moved towards the dragon, bombarding the atmosphere. Roa? The celestial fang's spirit roared and was projected backwards. Lin Feng looked at Yu Tianming again. In the same despising way he said, "I told you, you are a tiny little insect in front of me, nothing more. You have no chance to win." The crowd was shaking. Lin Feng was really terrifying. Yu Tianming had broken through to the 7th Xianqi layer but couldn't do anything against him. Lin Feng had obtained the first jade key. Was it really only due to luck? Besides, Lin Feng was deliberately playing around with Yu Tianming, trying to crush his self-confidence. Yu Tianming was going crazy. Was he really only a little insect? He had managed to make it to the great competition of Shuiyu. That was an incredible honor, a glorious thing. But now Lin Feng was going to crush him, his heart, and his self-confidence. Chapter 641. Prove what? Yu Tianming hadn't used his entire strength yet, but he didn't feel like using it anymore. Since the beginning of the battle, Lin Feng had been crushing his mood. All of his attacks were useless. Lin Feng was just staring at him, humiliating him, making fun of him. "Tianming, don't give up. You have to stay proud even if you lose. You are at the great competition of Shuiyu. Losing a fight is not a disaster, it's normal," shouted Yu Qingshan. He knew what Lin Feng was doing. He could see everything. For a cultivator, losing one's courage, honor, and dignity were the worst things. If a cultivator's heart was destroyed, he wouldn't be able to continue becoming stronger. Why was Lin Feng doing that? Did he hate Yu Tianming? Why was he so cruel to him? Yu Qingshan didn't understand. His thoughts were chaotic. It was the first time that he felt so confused, even though he was quite old. Yu Tianming was the treasure of the Yu clan. Yu Qingshan had faith in him. With all the efforts Yu Tianming had made in the past, he couldn't lose his motivation. Yu Qingshan's voice resonated and detonated in Yu Tianming's brain. He immediately roared violently and his terrifying celestial fang's spirit appeared again. Yu Tianming's blood seemed like it was boiling. He couldn't submit himself. He had thrived for victory. The strength of his blood spirit kept flowing at full speed. Yu Tianming was roaring like an animal. His hair was violently fluttering in the wind. He grabbed Lin Feng's body and created fissures in the statue. Yu Tianming was finally managing to break Lin Feng's body. Break? Yu Tianming was surprised and immediately delighted. Finally. But Lin Feng said something else at that moment. "The only way for you to crack my golden body is to use your full strength. For the first disciple of the Yu clan and second high official of Shuiyu, that's ridiculous. You're a real piece of trash," joked Lin Feng. Yu Tianming couldn't do anything against Lin Feng, who was unknown. Ridiculous. "It's only a fissure. Why are you so happy? Do you think that's enough to defeat me? Do you think you can be proud of yourself now? You're less than trash," said Lin Feng. Finally, Lin Feng attacked and his golden hand crashed onto Yu Tianming's body. It seemed like it was going to crush him. Blood splashed and Yu Tianming's body flew away. He couldn't even withstand a single attack. Lin Feng jumped and landed in front of Yu Tianming. He looked down at him and said indifferently, "Do you feel proud?" Boom! Another golden hand appeared. Yu Tianming raised his hand and just heard his bones break. Crackling sounds could be heard by the audience. Yu Tianming couldn't stand up. He was left on the ground. Yu Tianming raised his head. His eyes were bloodshot. He was fixated on Lin Feng. He had the impression that he was going to go crazy. "And now? Are you still proud to be the second high official of Shuiyu?" said Lin Feng. Yu Tianming looked furious. His hair was extremely messy. "That's enough. Why do you hate him so much and have to be that cruel?" shouted Yu Qingshan furiously. Yu Qingshan was glaring at Lin Feng. They didn't know each other, and initially Lin Feng even looked warm and gentle. Why was he so cruel at that moment? Why was he humiliating him so much? Lin Feng turned around and looked at Yu Qingshan with a cold smile on his face. "But because of you, Yu Qingshan." "Me?" Yu Qingshan was astonished. "I don't understand. How did I offend you?" "Oh, I see," said Lin Feng smiling, but it wasn't a happy smile. It wasn't pride either. It was a mockery. The situation was ridiculous. "When you confronted your grandson, were you sad?" What about my mother? What about my father? And what about me? Grandpa. Grandpa. Lin Feng had called him Grandpa. Yu Qingshan's heart pounded violently. Yu Qingshan wasn't the only one. Yu Tianming was also shaken. Lin Feng was calling him Grandpa. The crowd was also astonished. That old man was his grandpa. Lin Feng. Yu Qingshan was astonished. It was really him. It was the real Lin Feng. Unfortunately, his grandson was proudly standing on the fighting stage at the great competition of Shuiyu. He had obtained the first jade key, but his grandfather didn't benefit from that glory. He was just astonished. Words couldn't describe those feelings. It was Lin Feng, the real Lin Feng. Yu Qingshan looked extremely sad. So it was you. It's me, said Lin Feng, nodding. Some flames were burning in his eyes. In a flash, his face changed. He didn't look sick anymore, but his eyes looked just as resplendent as before. He was an outstanding young man. Lin Feng looked even younger than the sick Lin Feng. He had just been wearing a mask. At that moment, many silhouettes stood up. The people from Tianfeng, from the Wanshou sect, from the Yu clan, they all stood up. They were staring at him. They were starting to understand the situation a little better. The Yu clan understood why Lin Feng had killed Yu Jian and Yu Qin. The people from Tianfeng also knew why Lin Feng had been killing them one after the other. Lin Feng hadn't died, he was still alive. It's him. Wu Qin couldn't take his eyes away from Lin Feng. Lin Feng had become so strong, Wu Qin was starting to get scared. Besides, Lin Feng would try to exterminate the Wanshou sect if he remained alive. Wu Qing's heart started pounding. He felt terrified. If Lin Feng became stronger, he would kill them all. It's him. The people from Dragon Mountain were astonished too. Lin Feng hadn't died. He had disappeared but reappeared with a new face. Yu Qingshan was looking at the young man. He looked dazzling, clean, handsome. He didn't look furious, he just looked alive. Was everything Yu Qingshan's fault? He had always taken care of Yu Tianming and had hoped that Yu Tianming would become a dragon amongst people. But he had expelled his own daughter from the clan, and her husband and her son. Lin Feng and his father hadn't been able to live or come back to the imperial city. They had had to live in a small town. Lin Feng had come back to Shuiyu and Yu Qingshan had hoped that Yu Tianming would crush Lin Feng. He had even tried to make Yu Tianming steal Lin Feng's girlfriend, Duan Xianyi. He had told Yu Tianming to attack Lin Feng in front of everybody. Only a part of his dream was realized. Yu Tianming and Lin Feng were fighting during the competition. But the problem was the winner wasn't Yu Tianming. The result was astonishing. His grandson, Yu Tianming, had been humiliated and crushed by Lin Feng, who only counted on himself. Lin Feng could easily kill Yu Tianming if he wished. For him, Yu Tianming really was a tiny little insect. Ridiculous, sad, tragic. That was only the beginning. Why are you doing that? Asked Yu Qingshan. To prove something to everybody. You said in the past that you hoped that Yu Tianming would defeat me in front of everybody at the competition. Now I have proven that my determination was stronger. I proved you that your grandson is not extraordinary. That your other grandson, who's your daughter's son, can accomplish great things. I want to be a source of pride for my mother, and I want to prove to everyone that she didn't make a mistake when she left the Yu clan, said Lin Feng slowly. His speech had made Yu Qingshan's heart twitch. Chapter 642. One attacked to prove in front of everyone that Yu Qingshan was wrong. To prove that my mother, Yu Menghe, was right. Yu Qingshan was speechless. Was Lin Feng wrong? He was right. Lin Feng was entirely right. Everything was Yu Qingshan's fault. He had supported Yu Tianming to put pressure on Lin Feng. He had even encouraged him to attack and offend Lin Feng. Yu Qingshan had done that even though Yu Tianming and Lin Feng should have been raised like brothers. Lin Feng and Yu Tianming were both extremely gifted. They could have been much stronger if they had grown up together. They could have supported each other on the path of cultivation. But in the end, nothing had happened that way because of Yu Qingshan. Yu Qingshan closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He had really made a lot of mistakes. Kill me, said Yu Tianming. He was lying on the ground. He felt desperate and hopeless. Lin Feng had just crushed his entire life. He had always dreamt of defeating Lin Feng, and in the end, Lin Feng had stepped on and crushed his integrity. Lin Feng lowered his head and looked at Yu Tianming indifferently. Kill him? We have the same blood. Even though I don't consider you as a brother, I cannot violate that blood relation. I have to respect your parents and my parents, so I will not kill you, said Lin Feng indifferently. Yu Tianming would live on despite the anger. That was also an endless humiliation for Yu Tianming because it meant that Lin Feng controlled his entire life, only because of a blood relation. Lin Feng turned around and looked at Wu Qing. Coward! You won't live much longer. If you don't die this turn, you will be my next opponent and your life will be mine, said Lin Feng indifferently. Wu Qing was scared. Lin Feng was going to kill him. Besides, Lin Feng could really kill him now, he was strong enough. Yu Tianming had broken through to the 7th Shenqi layer and Lin Feng could easily defeat cultivators of the 7th Shenqi layer. Even if he had been stronger than Yu Tianming, he still wouldn't have been able to defeat Lin Feng. Wu Qing had always wanted to kill Lin Feng, but now Lin Feng had the power and strength to kill him. And you, said Lin Feng, looking at Nye Yun. He wouldn't let any of them off. People from Tianfeng were his enemies. Nye Yun was just as speechless. He was the first envoy of Tianfeng and he was afraid because Lin Feng had glanced at him only once. After threatening those few people, Lin Feng slowly turned around and looked at the crowd. People from Tianfeng, the Yu clan and the Wanshou sect. Lin Feng looked at each and every single one of them. I know that you all want to kill me and that you are all surprised. I changed my face because of you. You have always tried to humiliate me, always insulted and always tried to kill me, but I am still alive and now I am not scared of you anymore. Now I can tell you, I am alive and if I don't die, you will, said Lin Feng indifferently. Those people were all speechless. Lin Feng hated them deeply and bitterly. They all perfectly knew how Lin Feng felt. They wanted to kill him, but he also wanted to kill them. If Lin Feng remained alive, he would definitely win. You will die here during the great competition of Shuiyu anyways, said the middle-aged man from Tianfeng coldly. Of course, if you don't die, I will personally kill you. Do you think that with your ridiculous strength, you will manage to kill me? Said Lin Feng indifferently yet mockingly. That person had broken through to the 8th Shenqi layer. Lin Feng could easily kill people of the 7th Shenqi layer. Soon, Lin Feng would also be able to easily defeat cultivators of the 8th Shenqi layer. Besides, Shui Wuchang had previously told Lin Feng that obtaining the first Jade Key would provide him with incredible benefits. Lin Feng had to cherish that opportunity. After the competition, he would never have to be afraid of a cultivator of the 8th Shenqi layer ever again. That cultivator of the 8th Shenqi layer was astonished, staring at Lin Feng. Indeed, after the competition he wouldn't be able to compete with Lin Feng anymore. Lin Feng was becoming stronger and stronger, and at an incredible speed. You won't have any opportunity. You will die on the fighting stage of the competition, said a cold voice. Lin Feng turned around and saw Shueisha. He wanted to kill Lin Feng and was releasing an evil qi. Indeed, you will die here, said Yuemo. Those two had surprised everyone. Such strong cultivators wanted to kill Lin Feng. Some people in the crowd laughed when they saw that Yuemo and Shueisha wanted to kill him. Indeed, Lin Feng was definitely going to die there with them. Shueisha and Yuemo wanted to kill him. Would he die? Lin Feng was definitely going to die. If we ever fight, yes, said Lin Feng mockingly. He had the first Jade Key, he would be able to choose his opponents the entire time. The two others groaned coldly while staring at Lin Feng. Lin Feng moved back to his original position. He had wasted too much time and Shui Wuchang hadn't made any reproach. Lin Feng couldn't exaggerate either. Tang Yuyu was looking at Lin Feng coming back towards her. She then looked at him and said, I can kill one of them for you. Which should I kill? Tang Yuyu was pointing at Nye Yun, the first envoy of Tianfeng, and Wu Qing of the Wanshou sect. Nye Yun and Wu Qing were astonished. They had forgotten that Tang Yuyu was his friend. Don't worry, you can kill one and I will kill the other one, said Jun Emoshi. Wu Qing and Nye Yun were even more furious. Tang Yuyu and Jun Emoshi wanted to kill them? The competition is getting more and more interesting. It will have to end soon, thought the crowd laughing. A moment before, Yu Mo and Shueisha had threatened to kill Lin Feng, but now Tang Yu and Jun Mo she were proposing to help Lin Feng. After that series of battles, there would be 16 people left. Those remaining would be authentically strong cultivators, the Titans. Just choose one as you wish. Give him the strongest ones, said Lin Feng to Tang Yu while laughing. He was telling her to leave the strongest opponent for Jun Mo she. Tang Yu and Jun Mo she wanted to help him. He was happy about and wasn't going to refuse. Jun Mo she laughed. Lin Feng really knew how to talk to beautiful women, surprisingly telling Tang Yu to choose the easy opponents. You, said Tang Yu to Nie Yun, which made him feel tense. He still came out and faced her. It was much better than fighting against Jun Mo she. After all, Tang Yu had only broken through to the very top of the 7th Shenqi layer. She wasn't as strong as the 8 most dazzling geniuses of the competition. When Tang Yu saw that Nie Yun was coming, she immediately attacked. Her face was filled with murder. Killing me won't be that easy, shouted Nie Yun furiously. The chi of his spirit then invaded the atmosphere. Nie Yun was about to release his spirit. He was immediately going to deploy his entire strength. Really? Said Tang Yu coldly. She then immediately disappeared from her initial position and a hand appeared on Nie Yun's shoulder. Huh. The crowd was stupefied. What was happening? In the blink of an eye she had appeared on his side. How was that possible? Then her hand crashed onto Nie Yun's head. What? How's that possible? Nie Yun asked as he slowly collapsed. At the same time, like a celestial being, Tang Yu moved back and landed next to Lin Feng. She had killed Nie Yun in one simple attack. From that moment, the 7 envoys of Tian Feng were dead. All of them had died. Chapter 643. The 16 best. The people from the Wan Xian sect who had just sat back down stood up again. The imperial tutor also stood up. Nie Yun was dead. Tang Yu had killed Nie Yun in one single and simple attack. How horrible! Last time, Feng Chen and the envoys had died in Shuiyu. This time, all the new 7 envoys had died again. Joining the great competition of Shuiyu was supposed to be an honor, a glory for them, but now they had lost all their fighters. The 7 envoys were all dead. What a humiliation! Everything was because of Lin Feng. Almost all of their most outstanding fighters had died. That night when Lin Feng had almost died, he had killed all of them cruelly. If they had managed to kill Lin Feng, it would have been worth it, but Lin Feng was still alive. The consequences were terrible for Tian Feng. He must die. They were all furious. They all wanted to kill Lin Feng. Put the corpse away, demanded Shui Wuchang, glancing at the middle-aged man and the imperial tutor. The middle-aged man then moved to Nie Yun, grabbed his body and pulled it to the side. Then Shui Wuchang looked at Di Ling. It was his turn. Di Ling jumped forwards and arrived in the middle of the fighting stage. Di Ling then looked at someone. Nobody was surprised. Come, said Di Ling indifferently. That person raised his head and looked furious. He was insulting Di Ling in his heart. Even though he had broken through to the 7th Xianqi layer, he couldn't rival with Di Ling. The result of the battle was obvious. As expected, Di Ling defeated him in one punch, crushing all his bones. Di Ling let him off though and didn't kill him. Duan Wudao's battle was the same, one punch and he defeated his opponent. The 5th one was Jun Mo shi. Of course, when Jun Mo shi came out, Wu Qing and the people of the Wan Shou sect were terrified. They hadn't forgotten what he told Lin Feng. Tang Yu and Jun Mo shi were going to kill Lin Feng's enemies. Tang Yu had already killed Nie Yun, so Jun Mo shi was going to kill Wu Qing. As expected, Jun Mo shi looked at Wu Qing, which made his face turn deathly pale. Was he going to try and run away like the second envoy? It would be normal if he decided to run away. He couldn't compete with Jun Mo shi. He wouldn't even have the opportunity to hit him once. Jun Mo shi and Tang Yu were the same. With one punch they could kill people. But if he gave up, he wouldn't benefit from the treasures of Xingong. Nobody knew that during the first round of the competition, he had already acted like a coward. He hadn't obtained precious treasures in the evil area because he hadn't gone and hunted people. He only tried to survive and stay hidden the whole time. This time, he wouldn't be able to hide away. Teng Wuyao looked as ugly as Wu Qing at that moment. Why? All of this was because of Lin Feng. June Emo she was going to kill him because of Lin Feng, otherwise he wouldn't had the idea to pick him. Give up, said Teng Wuyao looking like a coward. There was no chance. If Wu Qing fought he would die. June Emo she was one of the 8 most outstanding disciples. If he hadn't been one of them, maybe then Teng Wuyao would have allowed Wu Qing to fight. Wu Qing was shaking. He glanced at Lin Feng and said, I forfeit. Then he left and moved into the crowd with the people from the Wan Shou sect. The competition had nothing to do with him anymore, but Wu Qing still hoped to see Lin Feng die during the competition. The 6th person was Xue Sha, he won. The 7th one was Yu Mo, he won. The 8th one was Qi Qing Jian Ling Xiao, he won. The 9th one was Ling Xiao Xiao, she won. The 10th one was Ku Yao Tong the Dead Tree, he won. The 11th one was Qing Meng Exin, she won. The 12th one was someone with a silver sword on his back. He fought against another sword cultivator. And the person he challenged was Jian Chen. Their battle was terrifying, just like Lin Feng had anticipated. Jian Chen understood sword intent. Unfortunately, the challenger also understood sword intent. In terms of sword intent, they were both level 1. Besides, the challenger was extremely strong. He had broken through to the top of the 7th Shenqi layer. Ultimately Jian Chen was eliminated. How unfortunate. The 13th person was a girl with an Ice Soul skill. That Ice Soul skill was monstrously powerful. Everybody had had the impression that they were going to freeze standing during her battle. She had challenged Leng Shui from Dragon Mountain. Leng Shui had lost after a few attacks. The 14th person had a monstrous strength and a body like steel. He challenged someone with a black left hand, Cui Wuming. In the end, Cui Wuming had, but in terms of strength, the challenger had been stronger. The 15th challenger had won, no exception and no surprises. But the 16th person had had no choice. The only person left to challenge was Yun Fei Yang. Yun Fei Yang was an exception. Usually, such a thing never happened at the great competition of Shuiyu. Yun Fei Yang had finished 50th during the 2nd round but had defeated the 16th cultivator during the 2nd round. Dragon Mountain had 6 people left: Lin Feng, Tang Yuyu, Duan Wu Dao, Jun Mo Shi, Qing Meng Xian and Yun Fei Yang. That was exceptional. The 3 other empires together only had 10 left. One more round and the competition would finish. Many were impatient to see the last battles. The last 16 people were all monstrously strong. The clash of titans would start. Apart from Lin Feng and Yun Fei Yang, all those people had broken at least through to the 7th Shenqi layer. However, Lin Feng and Yun Fei Yang were extremely strong. Many wished that they wouldn't have to fight against them. Lin Feng had scared everybody when he had defeated Yu Tianming. Yun Fei Yang was also able to easily defeat cultivators of the 7th Shenqi layer. Now, there were 16 people left. There were no weaklings, only extremely strong young cultivators. Have a rest for 1 hour, said Xue Wuchang. He was giving them 1 hour to retrieve some pure qi. Now the atmosphere was particularly silent. Many people were anxious or afraid to distract the 16 geniuses. Lin Feng took out a small round thing. Then he looked up at Jun Mo Shi and Tang Yuyu and asked, "Who do you want to fight?" "I don't know." Lin Feng rubbed his hands together. All the people left were extremely strong and had all broken through to at least the very top of the 7th Shenqi layer. "Same," said Tang Yuyu. "You have the choice, I don't." "I'm doomed," said Yun Fei Yang smiling. There were only 16 people left, so only the first 8 would be able to choose their opponents. "Same for me," said Qing Meng Exin. Immediately after, she looked at Lin Feng and said, "Choose me, I will let you win." Lin Feng looked at her beautiful face and shook his head resolutely. "No need to try and tempt or seduce me." Qing Meng Exin looked at Lin Feng angrily, then she lied down and put her head on Lin Feng's legs and closed her eyes. Her cleavage was directly in Lin Feng's field of vision, like 2 mountains. His eyes started peeking at the sides. "It seems like I'm doomed," sighed Qing Meng Exin in a cute way. She wouldn't be able to finish in the top 8. Chapter 644. A blood-like sword. Lin Feng sighed again when he heard Qing Meng Xen. It was a good thing that he had obtained the first Jade Key. Qing Meng Xen had obtained the 11th Jade Key, so she would end up fighting against the strongest geniuses of the competition. Indeed, the first one to choose was Lin Feng, and the second one was Tang Yuyu. So the 8 strongest geniuses would probably challenge her and she would probably get eliminated. After 1 hour, the battles were about to start again. Xue Wuchang looked at those 16 geniuses. Their pupils were all twinkling. The real battles were about to start for real. Xue Wuchang looked at those 8 people and announced, "The 16 last people won't be eliminated easily, the rules will change. We want a precise ranking list in the end." Huh. The crowd wasn't ready, the rules were going to change? Indeed, they needed a precise ranking in the end for the competition to be fair. "It seems like things won't be as sad as I thought for myself," said Qing Meng Xen, who was lying on Lin Feng's legs, smiling in a seducing way. Lin Feng was a bit surprised when he said, "You already knew that it was going to end up like this, right?" Qing Meng Xen looked at him and smiled. "Every round is like this. How could the last 16 cultivators get eliminated that easily without any rule? What about the 8 last ones? And 4 last ones? Only morons like you cannot understand such things." Lin Feng scratched his head. She was making fun of him and he didn't know what to say. But Qing Meng Xen was right. Would people get eliminated endlessly? That didn't sound credible. "Alright, you need to understand the rules now," said Xue Wuchang. "First, those who have the best Jade Keys can take the initiative, just as before. But this time, if you choose someone and lose the battle, you must give it to your opponent and you'll obtain the very last one." Lin Feng was smiling wryly. He had obtained the first Jade Key, but if he lost he would end up last. And everybody else would raise up in the rankings. Lin Feng had no choice, he had to win every matchup. After the 8th battle your Jade Keys will have new numbers, but those numbers won't be your final ranking. I will bring you to another place where you will have wonderful opportunities. If you are talented enough, your cultivation level will increase. As expected, some more opportunities, thought the crowd shakily. They looked full of hope. This time, they would have some great opportunities again. Xue Wuchang would bring them to a place where they could increase their cultivation level. Lin Feng's eyes were twinkling. He would always keep in mind Xue Wuchang's words. He couldn't waste the first Jade Key because it would mean even more at that moment. Keeping the first Jade Key would guarantee him the best treasures. The treasures were probably different depending on which key you possessed. The first one was probably the best one. Keeping the first key wouldn't be impossible, but it would be difficult. But now he had to do it. After coming back from this special place with your treasures, everybody will have to fight again. Then we will see who the strongest ones really are. I will tell you the new rules then, and afterwards we will know the precise ranking of the 16 winners of the great competition of Shuiyu. Finished Xue Wuchang. He then looked at everyone again and said, "Do you understand?" The crowd nodded. Xue Wuchang's explanation was easy enough to understand. "Alright, let's continue the fights then. Don't forget to protect your keys." It seemed like Xue Wuchang was looking at Lin Feng specifically when saying this. Lin Feng was serious and solemn now. That battle was going to be decisive for him. If he lost, he would miss a great opportunity and would miss incredible treasures. If he lost, he would obtain the 16th key, the very last one. He couldn't lose. Lin Feng jumped in the middle of the fighting stage and looked at the other fighters. He had to choose one person out of those 15. They were staring back at Lin Feng. They were all hoping that Lin Feng would choose them. They all considered him as the weakest cultivator of the group. Finally, Lin Feng looked at the 15th person. That 15th person had ranked 16th, and during the last series of battles he relied on some simple agility techniques to win. "You?" said Lin Feng. That person looked a bit tense but immediately smiled. Fighting against Lin Feng was the best thing that could happen to him. He then jumped forwards like a swallow and landed in front of Lin Feng. "Thank you," he gestured towards Lin Feng. He was thanking Lin Feng for having chosen him. "Are you sure that you want to thank me?" asked Lin Feng indifferently. That person nodded and said, "I saw you fight, even though your golden Buddha body is a strong attack. And even though you can defeat cultivators of the 7th Shen-Qi layer, you are extremely slow. I can do whatever I want with you. I can't understand why you chose me. You think that you will win and thus thanked me, right? Asked Lin Feng. Indeed. Thank you for choosing me. I will cripple your cultivation, said that person, leaving Lin Feng speechless. I choose you so you thank me jokingly. Now you plan to win and cripple my cultivation, eh? But I'm also saving you from getting humiliated. It means that if anyone else chose you, you'd have absolutely no chance, said Lin Feng. The other nodded and said, you're smart but you did something stupid too. Alright. Since you're so confident, I will give you a chance now. We will see if you can thank me again after the battle, said Lin Feng, slowly raising his hand and grabbing the sword on his back. The crowd was stupefied. Apart from his Buddha attacks, Lin Feng also used swords? A metallic sound spread in the air when Lin Feng unsheathed his sword. That sword was red like blood and particularly dazzling. On that sword there was blood and sword energy. Ha! The crowd was astonished. Since when could Lin Feng use a sword? A terrifying sword energy then emerged out of his body and emitted whistling sounds. In a flash, Lin Feng was surrounded by a sword light. So I'm too slow when I use my golden body? Did you wonder if I could use anything else? Said Lin Feng indifferently. Immediately after, a terrifying sword energy started rolling out of his sword and into the air. That person was astonished. What a terrifying blood sword. That chi was really frightening. You made me use this sword, said Lin Feng. Then he jumped forwards and threw himself at his enemy. It seemed like his terrifying sword energy was about to lacerate the enemy. That person then started moving incredibly fast. I don't think that your sword is faster than my agility techniques, said the person coldly. Lin Feng then rose up in the air as well. He was surrounded by sword energy and sword intent. Die. The sword intent and blood energy fused together. That person only saw a terrifying light. The enemy wanted to dodge, but it seemed impossible. He lowered his head and saw some blood dripping. Your agility technique is fast, but I am faster, said Lin Feng. That person's heart pounded violently. Chapter 645. The Holy City, are you faster than my sword? Asked Lin Feng. The crowd was astonished as they watched the silhouette in the sky, more precisely his abdomen. His abdomen was covered with blood, and then incredibly, some blood arrows started emerging out his abdomen and moving into Lin Feng's sword. Lin Feng's sword was drinking blood. His sword drinks blood, thought the crowd stupefied. Lin Feng's opponent raised his head and asked, Lin Feng, what is your sword? It's a bloodthirsty sword, said Lin Feng indifferently. We are 16, losing here is not dramatic. Originally, I just wanted to fight and stop when one of us had lost. We would have both benefited from amazing advantages and would have both become much stronger. We would have been seen as amazing and dazzling cultivators. Unfortunately, you wanted to cripple my cultivation, so you have to die now, and you have only yourself to blame, explained Lin Feng while his sword continued drinking his opponent's blood. Then he stopped at his opponent and moved back to his original position. The moron offended the dragon. And the moron will die, said that person with a sorrowful smile. He could have had a beautiful future, but now he was going to die now. He then slowly collapsed, crashing onto the fighting stage. Shui Wuchang raised his finger, and in a flash the body burnt to ashes and disappeared. Shui Wuchang looked absolutely calm and serene. He glanced at Lin Feng. Lin Feng really had incredible natural abilities. He really had benefited from the temples at the beginning. When the crowd saw the corpse burn to ashes, they then glanced at Lin Feng. They were unable to calm down. Lin Feng had understood the golden body. So people couldn't break him? Lin Feng could use one sword to threaten everyone. That infuriating the possessor of the first jade key was dangerous. What astonished those who knew Lin Feng was that he was able to crush cultivators of the 7th Shen-Qi layer easily. He had even despised and humiliated Yu Tianming. For someone like Yu Qingshan, the situation seemed unreal. His grandson was dazzling on the fighting stage of the great competition of Shuiyu. but at the same time, he didn't recognize him as his grandson. Like a tiger, Meng He's son is an incredible successor. If she were here, she would probably feel very gratified. Thought Yu Shan. He looked sad as he closed his eyes. Lin Feng's natural abilities were higher than that of his parents. He's amazing, our brother has become so strong, thought Han Man. Under his bronze mask, there was a magnificent and resplendent smile. He was clenching his fists so hard that blue veins appeared. Lin Feng's strength was astonishing, everyone's hearts were pounding. That young man on the stage was Han Man's great friend, they were like brothers. If Lin Feng goes back to Shuiyu after the great competition of Shuiyu, apart from Duan Wu Dao, nobody will be able to compete with him anymore, thought Pajun impatiently. After obtaining the great treasures of the academy, and with his bloodthirsty sword, who would be able to rival with him? His goal can't be Shuiyu. He will become famous in the empire, or even in the holy city, said Xiaoya while clenching her tiny fists. She looked excited. The holy city? What is that place? Asked Pajun unknowingly. He had never heard that name. Xiaoya looked at him and when she saw that he looked confused, replied, the incredible geniuses of the great competition of Shuiyu are considered as ordinary people in the holy city. Mi Cheng or even Shin Gong are considered as tiny little spheres of influence in the holy city. Besides, in the holy city, there is only one sect. Pajun and Han Man were astonished, their eyes were twinkling. The geniuses of the great competition of Shuiyu were ordinary people in the holy city. The mysterious sphere of influence called Shingong was also small there. Was it a gigantic city? Where is the holy city? Asked Han Man. He was extremely curious. Pajun shook his head and said, we don't need to know that, we are tiny little insects. We will know when the right time comes. Ha, you will. Big brother will leave Shuiyu, will even leave Shuiyu. He will become an extremely strong cultivator on the continent of the 9 clouds, said Xiaoya. She was full of confidence for Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked like her real brother, like the one her grandfather sung of, a young hero reaching the clouds who would step on mountains and rivers someday. Unfortunately, her real brother had died. He couldn't take care of her anymore, but now, Lin Feng had become like her real brother. He was taking care of her and loved her like a real little sister. Han Man and Pajun nodded. Indeed, Lin Feng would become a monstrously powerful cultivator on the continent of the 9 clouds. He had to leave the tiny little country of Shuiyu, and even the small region of Shuiyu. Tang Yuyu then moved to the middle of the fighting stage. It was her turn to choose. Just like Lin Feng, she had to win not to lose her jade key. She had the second one, so losing it would be a catastrophe because she would end up at the end of the rankings. She then looked at the different potential opponents. Amongst those in the top 10, she didn't feel like fighting anyone. Apart from Lin Feng, she couldn't defeat any of them anyways. Qin Meng Xian and Yun Fei Yang couldn't fight, they had become friends too. I choose you, said Tang Yuyu, looking at the 13th woman with the Ice Soul skill. That girl looked at Tang Yuyu and remained emotionless. Her chi was ice cold just like her skill. She jumped and landed in front of Tang Yuyu. Let's see who can win in one attack. What do you think? Asked Tang Yuyu. The other glanced at her and said, all right. It didn't matter if she lost the battle or won. That girl had nothing to lose, that's why she didn't refuse Tang Yuyu's proposition. Participating at the competition was already amazing for her. Be careful, said Tang Yuyu and suddenly turned into 1,000 dream shadows, which then turned into real clones. They were everywhere. That girl suddenly moved backwards and abruptly, the atmosphere became ice cold. Snowflakes started falling in the air. Absolute zero freeze. Gotcha. The temperature was ice cold, piercing to the bones. Even the crowd felt ice cold. Surprisingly, a layer of ice appeared on the fighting stage. Besides, in the middle, there was a blizzard. It seemed like Tang Yuyu's clones were going to freeze and turn into statues. What a terrifying coldness, thought Lin Feng speechless. He was also feeling the cold. That coldness actually froze Tang Yuyu's clones. Something moved? In the ice, a silhouette moved and attacked the girl. She turned around and in a flash, she knew what it was. She moved backwards and raised her head, spitting out ice and snow. It shot out towards Tang Yuyu. "Break!" shouted Tang Yuyu. Her body broke the ice, her black hair was moving in all directions, and then she suddenly disappeared. But quickly, she appeared in front of that girl. "Destroy!" said the girl, attacking Tang Yuyu again. The ice and Tang Yuyu's fists collided. In that flash, her body was frozen again. Had Tang Yuyu lost? Immediately after, a crackling sound spread in the air and the girl moved back of a few meters. There was still blood on her hands, but blood was splashing out of her mouth. "I see," said the girl sorrowfully. Tang Yuyu's strength could surprisingly cross ice. That must be a particular aspect of her skill. "You win," said the girl while moving back. Some cracking sounds spread in the air and Tang Yuyu appeared in the open air again. She had managed to protect the second jade key. Chapter 646, Titans Battles. Phew. Tang Yuyu took a deep breath. That battle hadn't been easy. The next cultivators were all monstrously strong. They had all broken through to the 7th Shenqi layer or above. Every battle would be monstrous. Tang Yuyu moved back next to Lin Feng. When Lin Feng saw that her body was still surrounded by a layer of ice, he released some fire qi and heated her up. The ice melted away quickly. "Thank you," said Tang Yuyu, smiling resplendently. Lin Feng nodded and looked at the stage again. The third battle was Di Ling's. Di Ling had chosen the person who was ranked 14th. It was a cultivator whose body was as solid as steel. However, Di Ling defeated him in one punch. The third battle was Duan Wu Dao's. He chose the person who ranked 12th and used a sword. Just like Di Ling, Duan Wu Dao defeated him in one extremely brutal punch. "Those two are extremely brutal," thought the crowd after watching Di Ling and Duan Wu Dao. Everybody had already forgotten that Duan Wu Dao came from a country under the jurisdiction of Dragon Mountain. They only knew that he was monstrously powerful. Nobody dared belittle him. He could definitely compete with Di Ling. They also heard about Duan Wu Dao's sealed doors blood spirit. They could seal other people's cultivation. The fifth battle was Zhu Nemoxi's. Zhu Nemoxi frowned and then smiled wryly when he arrived in the middle of the fighting stage. "I'm the fifth one." Zhu Nemoxi looked at his jade key, thought for a few seconds. From Lin Feng to Duan Wu Dao, they had chosen people who weren't part of the top 10. There were only 2 people left amongst the weakest cultivators: Qing Meng Xian and Yun Fei Yang. He felt really embarrassed he couldn't choose them. Thus, he could only choose someone from the top 10. There were Xue Sha, Yuemo, Ling Xiao, Yu Xiao Xiao, and the dead tree. "Huh!" The crowd was astonished. "Come," said Zhu Nemoxi. Yuemo was astonished. He looked to his left, there was Xue Sha. And then he looked to his right, there was Ling Xiao. Immediately after, he looked at Zhu Nemoxi again and realized that Zhu Nemoxi was really looking at him. He was astonished. Yumo's eyes were twinkling though. How interesting, Zhu Nemoxi had chosen him? The crowd was stunned as well. Zhu Nemoxi was choosing him? Really? Everybody was looking at him. Zhu Nemoxi had chosen him. Zhu Nemoxi was a genius from Dragon Mountain and was one of the 8 most outstanding young disciples of the competition. During the second round he had obtained the 5th jade key. Yuemo was a genius from Firmament and was also one of the 8 most outstanding geniuses of the competition. During the second round he had obtained the 7th key. Now Zhu Nemoxi was challenging him? Phew. The crowd looked terribly excited. They were shivering. Finally, 2 monstrously strong cultivators were going to fight. They were both one of the 8 most outstanding disciples at the competition. Who was the strongest one? Zhu Nemoxi or Yuemo? "You chose me?" asked Yuemo. He was slowly standing up and staring at Zhu Nemoxi. "I think so. I find you and Xue Sha the ugliest, but since you are weaker, I chose you," explained Zhu Nemoxi. Everybody was surprised he said that. Some people were smiling wryly. With that kind of reasoning he must not care about his jade key? "Alright, very good," said Yuemo, looking more and more evil. Then he jumped forwards and landed in the air above the fighting stage, where a monstrously cold energy invaded the atmosphere. He glared at Junimo Shi and said, "Very good. No matter what you think, I am curious to see if you will be able to keep your 5th jade key." "Let's see how strong you are then," said Junimo Shi indifferently. He didn't look aggressive at all, he only looked calm, serene, maybe relaxed. He definitely looked like he didn't care. Maybe that his self-confidence enabled him to despise Umo. However, Junimo Shi didn't look conceited either, so it was difficult to know what he was thinking. "You will see," said Umo immediately. His eyes turned white and gray. His 8 trigrams eyes had appeared. He looked like Spider with those eyes. "Die!" shouted Umo furiously as several illusional trigrams started moving towards Junimo Shi to oppress his body. "They're going to fight now," thought the crowd. They were all shivering while watching them. 2 of the 8 most outstanding geniuses of the competition were going to fight against each other for the first time. Boom! Junimo Shi's body was completely surrounded. His long hair was fluttering violently. But still, Junimo Shi remained calm and serene as before. He slowly moved his head to look at Umo. The crowd believed Junimo Shi looked like a holy man. His chi was pure, elegant, and holy. Boom! The 8 trigrams in the air soared to the sky and were suddenly surrounded by a golden light that detained them. Those golden lights were gigantic, like skyscrapers jetting up. Boom! That gigantic, pure, and holy golden light turned into a hurricane as the 8 trigrams were destroyed. Junimo Shi's chi was incredible and oppressive. How strong, thought the crowd speechless. They had never seen Junimo Shi release any chi before. What powerful energy! What skill was he using though? Umo was surprised. His 8 trigrams had been destroyed by Junimo Shi's golden chi. How? "Vital energy of the world," said Junimo Shi while jumping forwards. Rumbling sounds spread in the air as his chi abruptly became even more imposing. Down the mountains and through the rivers, a gigantic hand made of golden chi emerged and rolled in the atmosphere towards Umo. That chi was altering the entire space. The vast fighting stage was suddenly covered by a vital chi. It was the vital chi of the earth and the sky. "Break!" shouted Umo while releasing some pure chi. His white and gray pupils looked colder and colder. Whistling sounds were increasingly strident. It seemed like it was going to be difficult for Umo to block the vital chi of the earth and sky. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying chi suddenly rolled and tossed over in the atmosphere. That chi was terrifying and oppressive. How terrifying! Umo had the feeling he couldn't condense energies or strength anymore. He was just being oppressed violently. "Illumination of the heavenly bodies," said Junimo Shi. In the air there was the vital chi of the earth, of the mountains, the rivers, and of the heavenly bodies. The air was filled with purity, holiness, and righteousness. The crowd was shivering, everybody became solemn. They were feeling guilt build up in their hearts. That vital chi was filled with righteousness which made sinners feel guilty. Umo's heart was filled with poison and evilness, so it was difficult not to be affected. His strength was being completely oppressed. He had no determination to fight anymore. He just stared at the pure and holy chi which was becoming even more magnificent in the sky. His facial muscles were twitching. How come? Junimo Shi's strength was really terrifying. 8 trigrams, shouted Umo. His eyes were radiating evil. His chi moved towards the vital chi in the air. "Vital chi of righteousness, destroy evil and sinners," sung Junimo Shi. Each of his words were releasing pure vital chi which attacked and collided against the 8 trigrams. They vanished. Umo was unable to release his 8 trigram spirit properly. Boom! Some spirit chi emerged in the air. The 8 trigrams appeared behind Umo. His eyes were bloodshot. "That's enough," shouted Xue Wuchang at that moment. He sounded furious. Umo was astonished. "It's the end of the battle. No need to continue," said Xue Wuchang indifferently. With Junimo Shi's vital chi of righteousness, continuing the fight was useless. Xue Wuchang already knew how the battle would end if they continued. Chapter 647. Everybody, give up. There really are too many geniuses, thought Xue Wuchang. June Mo, she could use pure and unadulterated vital chi of righteousness. How rare and how difficult, especially to make it reach such dimensions. It was extremely hard to learn. In order to learn vital chi of righteousness, one required a pure heart and couldn't commit sins. One's vitality and soul had to be pure. Sinners couldn't give birth to vital chi of righteousness. That skill was the reflection of one's personality. Stop now. Yuemo raised his head and looked at Xue Wuchang. He didn't understand why the battle had to stop. Just a moment before June Mo, she had just oppressed his body. Why would the battle stop? Yuemo wanted to regain face. He had just been humiliated. You lost, said Xue Wuchang. Yuemo didn't know what to say, so he pulled a long face. Xue Wuchang was humiliating him in front of everybody. Even though you didn't lose in terms of strength, you lost in your heart. What you need to do is not think about regaining your prestige, but instead, change your state of mind. If you are unable to change your state of mind, then you will miss out on the wonderful opportunities that await you ahead. At that time, you will lose again, said Xue Wuchang slowly to Yuemo. Yuemo's face looked hideous. He understood what Xue Wuchang meant. After all, Yuemo wasn't stupid. June Mo, she was indeed extremely strong, and that vital chi of righteousness could destroy evil chi. A moment before, Yuemo had wanted to release his spirit, but June Mo, she wouldn't have struggled with it. That was indeed his defeat. We will fight again, said Yuemo coldly to June Mo. He then moved back to his seat. We can play together any time, said June Mo, smiling. He looked free, natural, and unrestrained. When he moved, his vital chi of righteousness disappeared and he looked like an ordinary young man again. There was nothing strange about him. June Mo, she moved back to his seat. In their hearts, everybody felt even more respect for June Mo. Maybe June Mo, she was one of the 3 best cultivators of the competition, along with Duan Wu Dao and Di Ling. Lin Feng and Tang Yu were extremely strong and had obtained the first jade keys. But compared with someone like June Mo, they were still very far, at least in their eyes. June Mo, vital chi of righteousness was monstrously powerful. Yuemo didn't have a chance to resist it. Yuemo was one of the 8 most dazzling geniuses of the competition, but he was still inferior to June Mo. Before the battle, everybody had wondered which of them were stronger. And the competition was full of surprises. June Mo, who didn't look as strong to begin with, was actually obscenely strong. Being aggressive and arrogant didn't mean anything to someone like June Mo, who was always calm, serene, and gentle. Many had thought that June Mo, was one of the weakest of the 8 most outstanding geniuses. But they just misunderstood his temperament. After June Mo's fight, it was the 6th person's turn, Xue Sha. Xue Sha stood up and chose Qing Meng Xen. Qing Meng Xen had a resplendent smile on her face. She looked to Xue Wuchang and said, "Mister, I am too weak, can I give up?" The crowd was astonished, but then they understood her. She was a girl. Beating Xue Sha would be extremely difficult. Forfeiting was a way to admit that she had already lost. "You can. You're here so you can choose to fight or not," said Xue Wuchang, nodding. "Thank you, mister," said Qing Meng Xen, looking honest. She then said to Xue Sha, "I give up?" Xue Sha groaned coldly. He wanted to try a skill, but Qing Meng Xen hadn't given him the possibility to try it out. He didn't like winning that way, especially after June Mo's victory. It should have been Yu Mo's turn after Qing Meng Xen gave up, but he had been defeated already, so it was Ling Xiao's turn. Ling Xiao only could choose between 3 people: Yu Xiao, Ku Yaoteng the Dead Tree, and Yun Fei Yang. I wonder if I could defeat Ku Yaoteng? If I fight against Yun Fei Yang, Yu Xiao will have to fight against Ku Yaoteng, thought Ling Xiao. His choice was too hard. In the end, he looked at Yu Xiao and said, "Let's give up together." When she heard him, she knew what he meant and nodded. Then he looked at Xue Wuchang and said, "Mister, I challenge Yu Xiao and we give up together." They didn't feel like fighting anymore. They were just thinking about the great opportunities Xue Wuchang had talked about. They wanted to know what they were and if they'd be able to break through to the next cultivation layer after. "Okay," said Xue Wuchang, not refusing. Immediately after, he looked to Ku Yaoteng and Yun Fei Yang. They had no choice. The last battle had to be between them. If Ku Yaoteng lost the battle, he would lose his jade key. But if Yun Fei Yang lost, he had nothing to lose because he already had the last jade key. Do we need to fight? Asked Ku Yaoteng to Yun Fei Yang. He didn't even move to the middle of the fighting stage. Let's try, replied Yun Fei Yang. The crowd thought that Yun Fei Yang was going to give up. That battle wasn't going to be great. The crowd could not believe that he would win. The dead tree was speechless, but then his eyes were twinkling as he said, "All right, let's try then." He jumped onto the fighting stage and watched Yun Fei Yang sharply. "Come if you want to fight," said Ku Yaoteng. He then released some dead tree chi. His eyes looked absolutely livid and cold. Yun Fei Yang landed on the fighting stage and said, "Ku Yaoteng the dead tree, I want to know where your nickname comes from." "You will see," said Ku Yaoteng coldly. His pupils turned gloomy. He looked dead. The entire atmosphere filled with a death chi and an eerie silence invaded it. It seemed like everything was dying around Ku Yaoteng. Yun Fei Yang wasn't far from him, but the death energy around his body didn't feel pleasant. It seemed like he could die at any moment. Ku Yaoteng then made a step forwards and some withered chi spread through the air. However, Yun Fei Yang smiled devilishly from the corner of his mouth. He looked particularly amused. "I'm sorry, I give up," said Yun Fei Yang abruptly. Everybody was astonished. Yun Fei Yang had asked for a battle and then suddenly gave up. Ku Yaoteng was furious, but he didn't even have time to react, that Yun Fei Yang was already back to his seat. He smiled resplendently and said, "I wanted to see your chi. Now that I saw it, there is no need to continue." "You're playing with me?" said Ku Yaoteng menacingly. "I think that everybody wants the battles to end as soon as possible," replied Yun Fei Yang joyfully. Everybody wanted to see the great presence from Shun Gong. Yun Fei Yang had given up right out, which meant that the battles had come to an end for now. That you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.